Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to the pre-season event for the SimRacing International GTE Championship Season 3 as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing. That's right, our much loved and much enjoyed Grand Touring Endurance Championship is back for its third instalment. We couldn't let the old GT machines in 1999 through to 2023 lie in what is slumber for too long, and they are back with a roar for its third instalment of this championship campaign. 10 rounds of intense racing action, a bigger emphasis on endurance racing which you've all been asking for, and we bring you up to speed today with this post-round broadcast as if it were live from circuit side for our pre-season event at the Silverstone circuit. Indeed, we couldn't quite televise this live back on Friday the 24th of July 2026. We're here today, this Tuesday the 28th of July, bringing it to you as if it were live as I sit here live in a commentary booth, looking back at all the racing action supplied thanks to Flavian Tiefri with his absolutely brilliant iRacing replay file. So therefore, we're going to use this as an opportunity to bring you up to speed with the story coming into the season, all the rule changes, the class changes, you name it, and what better way to get you up to speed and introduce you to Season 3 than with plenty of racing action. 27 drivers have made their way here to Silverstone today, the home of British motor racing, and where better to open up a season, not quite formally of course, round 1 is when we formally open things up, but at least whet our appetite and warm ourselves up than with a circuit that is all about high speed and high downforce. Indeed, to be quick here at Silverstone, the old Royal Air Force Airfield converted into one of the premier racing circuits in the world and a staple of what is World Endurance Championship Series as hosted by the FIA, including of course European Le Mans. Here's a circuit which is all about the wide open sweeping bends, the long straights, and therefore maximising corner speed, and the ability to carry every mile an hour onto the stretch of tarmac is going to be absolutely critical if you want to be leading the way. However, strategy will also be very valuable, and that's going to be interesting for our drivers to handle today. Are they going to be quick out in the corners, are they going to be quick on the straights, or quick in the pit lane, or a mixture of the three? Because all aspects were added together and could ensure an opportunity of victory. In the commentary, if you have myself, my name is Paul Walsh, and I'm very happy to be back once again for the third season of the SRI GTE Championship, and you'll be catching all the racing, whether as if it were live, all totally live from the circuit side, each and every round on the one place you can do so for this season, and indeed all of our series at SimRacing International. That's on youtube.com and search for SimRacing International SRI. And if you are sat there right now and you have access to the chat, don't be shy, feel free to say hi and let us know how you're doing and whether you're all set for an all-new championship season of our GTs, because I definitely am. And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's bring you up to speed with what you need to know going into Season 3. Indeed, let's take it from the top and give ourselves a bit of an education of what we can expect. Well, of course, as we take things from the top, the first thing we do need to take a look at is our calendar. Now, you'll notice a few things about this calendar. Firstly, look at all the venues. Silverstone, Fuji, Road America, Interlagos, Kota, Sebring, the 24-hour Le Mans circuit, also known as the Circuit de la Sarthe or the Circuit de 24-hour du Mans, Motorsport Park, also known as Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, also there, Monza, the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit, and Portimao. These are all circuits which deviate perhaps from our regular attendance to the iRacing official GT Sprint Series, because we've decided for this season we want to go big, and we have gone with the circuits that GTs have raced at over the course of the extensive history of the class, and therefore that's why these circuits have been selected. We've gone away from the official schedule. However, we've also moved to a 2-week schedule whereby every 2 weeks a race will be held rather than a weekly basis, and that gives our drivers and our teams 2 weeks to prepare for each and every round, and therefore there should be no excuses for coming in blind to each round unless personal circumstances intervene. So it does mean as well, this is going to be a much longer season as far as the championship runs, running all the way when it gets underway in 2 weeks' time on the 7th of August, from the start of August all the way to just before Christmas on the 11th of December at Portimao, and therefore we could be seeing some drivers get an early Christmas present with regards to victory in the championship and also a trophy. But look to your right meanwhile, and as you can see there with regards to the length of our races, we have upped the race durations by 30 minutes. Previously, of course, in Season 2 we had our 60-minute feature races and our 90-minute endurance race rounds. Now, we decided to cut down on practice. We decided to cut down on the qualifying session length as well, both of them going from 45 minutes to 30 minutes, and we have upped the race distances by 30 minutes to compensate, because we all know that we all love the race in these GT machines, and you guys and girls have asked for it, our drivers have asked for it, so we decided to go with 90-minute races as our feature format and 2-hour races as our endurance format, and it'll be pushing these machines to the absolute limit. But on top of that as well, we do have 7 rounds, which will consist of what will be normal weather conditions, i.e. sunshine and cloud, and then we do have 3 rounds which consist of mixed weather conditions. Now, we're not going to be showing it on screen, but what we have already done is to help our drivers get ready for those mixed weather rounds, because they did catch a few drivers out, particularly, of course, many of you may remember the monsoon Daytona, and of course, what was the crazy tsunami-like weather at Spa-Francorchamps. Well, we definitely published those weather conditions well in advance for our drivers, so nobody can be caught out, and they get plenty of practice in. We do have those wet weather rounds. So round number 3 at Interlagos, for round number 5 at Sebring, and also round number 8 at Monza. And where we set up the weather conditions to be very challenging, but also to be approachable. But otherwise, we'll see sunshine and cloud every step of the way, and relatively cool track conditions, and therefore it'll be absolutely optimal for the racing. Indeed, there's something for everybody here, but all these circuits having a little bit of variety to them, where it be the high-speed, high-stakes circuit at Monza in round number 8, alternatively the sweeping undulations of Portimao in the season finale, all the way at the early beginnings, of course, at Fuji in round number 1 in only 2 weeks' time. We get things underway at the circuit. It's all about contradictions, which is near 1 mile long start-finish straight, but it's winding bends and it's very low-speed final sector. But if that is our calendar, well, of course, what about the cars that our drivers will be going racing in? Well, these haven't changed. Available only on the Premier Sim Racing platform, available on PC. That is iRacing. And we have 5 GTE wonders that return once again. The Ford GTE, the BMW M8, the Porsche 911 RSR, the absolute 9,000 RPM screamer of a car. We've got the Ferrari 488 GTE Evo, and also the Chevrolet Corvette C8R, the king of GTE, when GTE came to close in 2023 with its infamous win from 2 laps down at Le Mans, of course, as brought to you by Pratt Miller Motorsport. But as our drivers get ready to go, they'll be taking on these 5 machines, and we look forward to seeing who's going to pick what, particularly as the balance of performance continues to shift in the GT class and iRacing. And we'll be excited to see whether there's a firm favourite out there. We know the Porsche and the Corvette are typically the cars that are run, because they are the most popular cars in GT history, but also told that the most approachable cars. But those who brave the Ford, the BMW, Ferrari, could they bring some surprises as well, much like Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport did last season, of course. But we'll talk a little bit more about that and plenty more about our previous champions when we do head to circuit side. Now, you'll notice there as well, we do have 3 Drivers' Championship classes. They are back as well, whereby we do have our pros, who are 2,800 iRating and higher. Of course, those are on the borderline between pro and inter, and also from inter to club. We have had to make some tactical decisions as to where certain drivers fit. Plus, also, we have typically promoted our previous season Drivers' Champions upper class. So, therefore, for example, Jordan Shamblin, your champion in the inter class of season 2, has moved into pro. And for club, we've seen Dwayne Hoffman move into inter. But we'll talk more about our drivers shortly. But there we can see the differentiation. Pro, Inter and Club, those 3 classes are back, and 2,800 iRating and higher for Pro, 2,000 to 2,800 iRating for Inter, and those below 2,000 iRating, they are in Club. But of course, if we have got a calendar and we have got cars, we have got prizes up for grabs, and as per usual, we have 35 personalised driver trophies to be won. Now, you'll notice that in our Pro and our Club class in the Drivers' Championships, because we'll have Driver Class Championships, we've got 6 trophies up for grabs in both of the classes, and 9 in the interclass, our middle tier. Now, this is a bit different. We normally try to go 7, 7, 7, but we have had to go to 9 in the interclass provisionally, and the reason for that is because our interclass is absolutely stacked to the point it's oversubscribed, and we've had to work very hard to try and balance the classes out as best as possibly can. But when that does happen, we sometimes have to shrink down the number of trophies available in the other classes. Of course, those classes will have a smaller population of drivers, so that's where you've got a bit of a difference here, but that's going to account for 21 of your personalised driver trophies. And what about the other 14? Well, a little bit different for this season. We have changed the way the Teams Championship is going to work. Teams now are made up of a maximum of 2 drivers in each team, and it will be both drivers in the top 7 teams in the Teams Championship who will be taking home the coveted Black Edition SimRacing International GTE Championship trophies. It's a bit different from last season, where, of course, we did see teams made up of up to 3 drivers, and we just brought that down a little bit, and therefore it really comes down to driver pairs looking to work as hard as possible together to go for glory. And that's where our 14 trophies come from, and 14 plus 21 makes 35 personalised driver trophies to be won in Season 3. But as for what will be none other than our drivers, because of course, if we have a calendar, we have cars, and we have to have drivers who are going to chase after those prizes in said cars over the 10-round calendar. Well, here we go then, starting with our pros. Plenty of names that you'll recognise, and plenty of fresh faces as well. And the pro class has 18 drivers in it, and our highest iRating driver there, Mirko Bortolotti. And a big congratulations to him recently for his major achievements, of course, in the Lamborghini Temerario GT3, and the Gazix Racing Team driver, of course, racing it in real life in GT3 class. class and racing here on the simulator. And definitely one of the big stars to beat, our Season 1 champion back again, where it's likely to be a full or majority full season after what was a bit of a part-time Season 2. Yannis Albert, he dips his toes into the deep end. Our Thursday GT3 Championship star joins the grid for Quad Dash Racing. And we also do see the return of Scuderia GPX's driver now, Tim Perry, previously from Altitude Forever Esports, but Scuderia GPX has been able to steal the Ferrari driver away, and will Tim Perry be very eager to put down the hammer once again in his Ferrari. We do say Renault Mara for Leopard Esports rejoining the grid. Good to see him back once again. He definitely was a fan favourite out there, even if he wasn't the quickest. He had some great battles, but we also do see some new names to the grid, including Florian Gelder, the Full Tilt Production Motorsport driver, joining the much celebrated FTVM machine, and then we do see Marinko Jordan-Oski back once again. But looking to the right, perhaps looking to some new fresh faces as well, we do have none other there than what is Benny Vitta, who we join in the grid for Reptile Racing alongside teammate Bobby Paceman, and they've got an absolutely lovely livery on the car already. I can tell you that's going to be a favourite of the season. When you look at it, it definitely looks like a Reptile, their car. We also do have joining the grid none other than Sarah Van Viepeland, and well, very happy to see her joining for Valenti V Racing Pink, and they're our new team to the grid. And we also do have Hugo Robb joining the grid, as well as Nathan Aliol, the privateer, just head of the Gazix Racing Team driver there in terms of iRacing, but they're not necessarily going to be different between each other in the race. We'll have to wait and see. And we also do have the newcomer there of Matt Burrs, and also the returning fan favourite of Renee Roster for the Gazix Racing Team. But those are our Pro Class drivers. Meanwhile, in our second tier, coming to the Interclass. This is the biggest class, 24 drivers here. And well, we had to do our best to try and make sure we could all fit them in. And well, at the very top there in iRating, Ben Luca Eckel, the Leopard Esports, joining their ranks. And we look forward to seeing what Ben Luca can do to supplement the team that definitely was fighting to try and make the way into the top 10 over the course of the season of the team's championship. Serena Tahar joins the grid for Quad Dash Racing. Good to see her back on the grid in the SimRacing International Championship. She's had a bit of time away, but good to see her back racing once again. Also, Max Wheeler returns, this time for LBP Autosport. New team there rather than three-wheeler racing, but I wonder if he'll still have the four rings of Audi on the car. Then we do have Alina Whitman, and joining the grid there, the privateer, new to grid. And also we do see the joining there of Jesus Saavedra, and well, the Valenti V Racing Rose driver, the second of the Valenti V Racing teams. But look a little bit further down, some other newcomers there. Well, we do also have none other than what is Jesse Payne Wilkins, the privateer. Also Brandon White for Itbox Racing. Tom Cordy makes one to grid for LBP Autosport alongside Max Wheeler. And we do see the return of John Becker, and we look forward to seeing what he can do. Then we do have on the right hand side Stefan Gambi joining the grid, as does Robert Papaya for Enduro Heroes. And we also do have there a couple more newcomers, including Adam Lynch, a name that many of you will recognise, of course, from our Thursday GT3 Championship recently, but also a champion in the UK SimRacing Sunday GT3 Championship. And well, he's decided to dip his toes into the GTEs, and we look forward to seeing what he can do in a car without ABS. We also do see there Clyde Vella joining the grid for GPX SimSport alongside teammate Ivan Hauptke. Ivan Hauptke, of course, one of the big stars from the club class last season, being promoted to Inter, particularly with that strong run of form in the second half of the season, and joining up with a very strong driver in the form of Vella, they could be a team to watch. As we also do see Dwayne Hoffman, your champion from Season 2 in the club class, making his way into the Int class. And we look forward to seeing his progression continue. And then we do have none other. And then Bench LaBunch there, who sits, Bench LaBence, I should say, as he gets ready to go for Zambo RP Motorsport. And we also do see there what is Thomas Weston, John LeBrook, and James Bostock in the Interclass. As for the club class, meanwhile, 18 drivers here. We have Jose Martinez being the highest I rating of them, and the Valenti V Racing Rose team ahead of Jan. I do believe that's pronounced as Jan Pavlicek. And Pavlicek, they're the privateer driver. Nathan Healy also joined the ranks once again in club after what was a good start of form in Season 2, but it gradually wilted away as the season went on. He's going to be definitely one of the favourites if he can build up that form again in the club class this season. Ellen Olsen joins the grid for Valenti V Racing Pink. And we also do have Gianluca Rospo, Andrew Fellows, Craig Tillotson, Matthew Massey, and Jordan Butler. All names that many of you will be very familiar with rejoining the grid. We also do have Mikhail Salcuni for Rhino Esports, but also some new face in the form of Steve Carter joining the grid as a privateer. And also we do have there joining the grid Karolis Vazkevicius, and well, the privateer on 1416 I rating. How far can he punch up the order? Gareth Newton rejoins, the man who missed out on the club championship as he had to miss the season finale. Mr. Consistent, not the fastest necessarily, in that incredible four-way fight for the crown. And then we do have Sid Becker joining the grid, the privateer ahead of Max Dean and Gavin Corby, the GavMax Racing team. join this grid, welcome to them. They're going to be a potent weapon in the club class. And we also do have returns to the grid, Brian Beardsworth, and also then none other than, Renee Rosser. Although I do believe that is a bit of a misprint of a name there, ladies and gentlemen. And Renee Rosser, of course, competing in the pro class, and therefore one of the drivers' names has been excluded. We're just going to double check whose name should be there, because we don't want to forget about mentioning them. And I do believe there it is one of our returning drivers. So unfortunately, we don't have that name readily available. But still, a big welcome to all 60 drivers as they get ready to show off their escapades in the racing, including today here in the pre-season event. But the last big question, of course, many of you have is, what's changed for this season? Now, we've got plenty of rule changes. We've got such a big rule book to the point we're not going to make you read through all of it. Here's the things you need to know. Teams consist of 2 drivers now rather than 3. Teams also have a drop score for this season. They did not last season. This season, you will see the teams drop their lowest scoring round between rounds 1 to 9 inclusive. And that applies across the whole team, not individual drivers. So it will be the conjoined scores of both drivers in the team, and over the course of those 9 opening rounds, whichever round is their lowest scoring one, they will drop it. So even if it means it was a best result for one driver in the team, but a very weak result for the other driver, unfortunately, that best result for one driver in the team is going to be lost to the team's championship. Car setup wise, fuel loads are now unrestricted because we have got the longer races. We are giving the cars their full fuel tank, and it really does mean our drivers are going to be at the helm of making their own strategic calls. They're not going to be limited by the fuel tank. They're going to be deciding what to do with that fuel tank and the race distance. And one car change is permitted, but it is subject to a championship penalty of 30 points. We've seen a few car changes over the previous seasons, and those weren't penalised, but here this season it will be penalised. And 30 points is a big dent in a championship run, given the fact that is worth 30% of a feature race win. Qualifying length now has been reduced to 30 minutes, as we explained early on, so we can accommodate the longer races. And as for our races, the instant point limits have been slightly revised. The feature races are 90-minute races. They are 16 for a drive-through and 26 for a race disqualification, in line with the standardised format here now at SimRacing International. But for our endurance races, we respect the fact it's a 2-hour race. It is a bit longer. The drive-through penalty is still at 16 instant points, but we double it to 32 to get to the race disqualification boundary. And those are the rule changes you need to know. And with regards to our host circuit for this pre-season event, well, of course, it's the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit, located in the village of Silverstone in the county of Northamptonshire of England, the United Kingdom. 3.66 miles in length or 5.89 kilometres, depending on your preference of units, but what never changes is the number of corners, 18 in total. And a huge thank you to iRacing.com, not just for their brilliant simulator, but the absolutely fantastic track mats contained within it. And many of these corners, of course, household names, whether it be Abbey at turn number 1, not quite the Abbey many remember from the pre-2010 Grand Prix circuit, but still a very fast-flying right-hander into Farm Curve. And of course, we do have the infamous Wellington Straight, before our drivers make their way into the toughest medium-speed chicane sequence of Brooklands into Luffield, 2 hairpins back-to-back, and then they'll make the one to the National Straight of Woodcote in towards Cops Bend. The corner, of course, known perhaps best for drivers who can't go too wide for there in Formula 1, but still, we'll expect plenty of too wide through there today. We've got the Maggots into Beckett's complex, the winding down sequence that turns 10 through to 13, while drivers make the one to the Hanger Straight into Stowe, through the Vale and to Club to complete lap and do it all over again. But you know what, rather than talk about the lap, let's go to circuit side and see how our drivers are getting on in the qualifying session. We've got the best part of 13 minutes left of this pre-season qualifying, and who exactly is setting the pace right now? Well, the answer to that question is none other than Nathan Alou, who's looking very quick at this time and is really putting down the hammer here. He is one of our newcomers, of course, for the pro class, and we're very happy to see him here in the 396, the privateer. But of course, Tim Perry looked just as quick when we did go into the qualifying session from practice, and it was really between the two of them. And right now, it looks to be more of the same here, as Tim Perry going purple in the opening sector. But can he find a bit more time? And the answer is not quite. We know Tim Perry really has attempted to punch above his weight in that Ferrari 488 GTE Evo, and will come very close to victories last season, but it didn't quite come together the way he wanted it to. But of course, as we've introduced a few tries, let's talk a little bit about our previous season champions from Season 2. Now, we don't have the return in the pro class, our champion of Philip Ansell, who took 8 wins in 9 rounds he attended, and he wrapped up the title with a round to spare, which meant he didn't attend the Season 5, despite it being an undroppable round, and Wilson Liu, the runner-up, decided not to attend that round as well. And well, the only time that Philip Ansell was stoppable in his unstoppable run was at Daytona, where the wet conditions caught out so many drivers, including Ansell amongst so many more, but not Wilson Liu. Meanwhile, in the interclass last season, your champion was Jordan Shamblin, who has moved up from Concord Motorsport into Pro for this season. And, well, it was a very close season between him, Jan Lins, Mark Kalsberg and David Payne, and in the end, Chamberlain really started to have an edge midway through the season versus his rivals, and that enabled him to become home the champion, whereby he was able to pick up 3 wins and 3 podiums on top of those wins, and it was a highly consistent run of form in the final 5 rounds. But as for your club champion, well, of course, he's in the Interclass this season. Here he is out of the circuit right now, and, well, in a different colour livery. He's not quite in the all-blue livery that we did see him in the previous season. He's gone to the purple Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport car, and we gave 100% approval for the thumbnail for this broadcast. Indeed, we had to use the livery because he was the fan champion. He was the people's champion, and well, I do know he's based in the United States of America, so he's probably thinking right now we're calling him the equivalent of The Rock from the World Wrestling Entertainment, or WWE, because Dwayne Hoffman was your club champion, and goodness me, what a season it was. In a top 5 in club filled with primarily pro and inter teams, well, we got to see what was an absolute pro out there in the club class, whereby he was able to win that battle. And a very tight battle between James Bostock, Gareth Newton and himself, where his consistency and strategic prowess all season long prevailed, albeit we got to see as well Mark Kent look very strong, although for Mark Kent it was a very sinusoidal season. For every bit of success he had, he also had some major blunders out there or difficulties, but for Dwayne Hoffman, really he wasn't in the foil to Gareth Newton. If Newton couldn't win it on consistency, it would be Dwayne Hoffman who would be able to do so, and he had the strategic advantage in the end, and it was a very emotional crown for Dwayne Hoffman. And when we did have his final interview of the season, it reminded me, if any of you were big Formula 1 fans, but in the early noughties and the late 90s, if anybody remembers Rubens Barrichello, the Brazilian Ferrari driver's first ever Formula 1 win at Germany at the Hockenheim Ring in the year 2000, where he stepped up onto that podium and burst into tears. And for Dwayne Hoffman, it definitely was an incredible season for him, a very emotional end to the season. And he only took the 1 win and 3 podiums, but because he mostly finished in the top 5 every other round, that's how Hoffman got it done. But as for your team's champions, well, we stay with the theme of Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport, not on screen at the moment, with Hoffman back in the pit lane. There he is, he's just got back into the car, and we'll just try to get a camera angle on the car there. It was Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport who took that crown, whereby in the end it was a top 5 field of pros into teams, and it was the club trio of Kent, as in Mark Kent, Nathan Healy and Dwayne Hoffman, who snatched the crown with Kent's insane pace when it was able to be deployed successfully, Healy's solid podium finishes and top 5 finishes, and Hoffman's strategic masterclasses all added together, including a monster masterclass at Watkins Glen, as well as at Sebring early on the season. And it was one of the biggest team achievements we have ever seen in SimRacing International history for Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport. And I don't think we will ever see something like it again, given how they really rose against adversity. Indeed, it had to have a bit of a Brawn GP look to it, although the difference is, of course, Brawn GP, after taking their crown in 2009 in Formula 1, well, the team became the Mercedes Grand Prix team, and therefore that team can never essentially have to defend its championship title. But indeed, Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport back here, not to necessarily defend their title in the Drivers' Championships, but definitely to do so in the Teams' Championship. But that's the recap of your champions from the previous season. And as I try to make the one around, we do say hello there to Welsh Boy 2012, who says, good evening, hope all is well. And, well, we extend the same courtesy to you, Welsh Boy. Hope you're doing well. Although, to be fair, that does sound a bit derogatory the way I say that username there, but I promise you, if you're tuning in right now and you don't have access to the YouTube chat, I'm not referring to a person just because they are Welsh. That is their username, to be fair. And, well, saying good luck to Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport. And indeed, just to remind you, of course, this broadcast, whilst it is live, the racing itself is not live. It did occur last Friday, but we're bringing it to you as if it were live. Because, of course, you all deserve the raw live viewing experience as close as possible to it. And we have made some upgrades to the broadcast for this season. We have these post-round broadcasts, which we will have every so often, just because of scheduling conflicts between my personal availability as broadcaster and commentator and when our races are run due to some real-life commentary commitments. But still, let's focus on the here and now. And as the drivers make the way around, Nathan Allen will make his way on through. And, well, Mark Kent, they're saying, oh, I'll take the Brawn GP comparison. He's very happy with that. And to be fair, well, I thought you'd appreciate that comparison, Mark, and I hope you're doing well. But let's talk about some other drivers out there who weren't champions last season. Kevin Smith. Now, a very odd season for the 272 driver in Season 2, in the fact he had a lot of pace, no doubt about it, as he moves into his interclass. But the difficulty was last season that as much he had the pace, he never really got a chance to show it. Every time he took to the tarmac and did well in a qualifying session or indeed in the part of the race, suddenly it would come back to bite him, very sadly so. Therefore, for Smith, he really needs to get that bad luck away from him, because we know he's got a lot of pace, we know he can be quick, he can take wins. But right now, he's definitely got to find a way to get the bad luck duck off his shoulder and make his way towards the top 5 in the interclass. He's got the potential, but as he makes his way on around, well, we're on his way on through the quarters right now. He's yet to get a bad luck time on the board. We look to John Becker as well, back once again, the privateer. Now, I do believe he may actually be partnering up with Flavien Thierry again for this season, although he has been listed as a privateer entry for today, and that's why we do have these pre-season events as well. It helps us iron out any mistakes, any irregularities, and it gives our drivers an opportunity as well to get themselves nicely warmed up. But it is not mandatory, and that's why you're only seeing half the grid here today, and that's because some other drivers, meanwhile, have got other things they're committed to before they do get ready for round number 1 at Fuji. But still, why wouldn't you join a pre-season event, particularly when it's at Silverstone, such a fast circuit and a much-loved circuit for so many reasons. But John Becker back once again, and as he rolls his way through the corner there in the interclass, and his season definitely won as well, where in the end it did slide to the back end of the top 10 in Inter, if my memory serves me correctly. It just did not go quite the way he wanted it to, as he rolls his way between the apexes of the Vale chicane. In towards club he goes, and what's it going to be here as he heads towards the line for the first time, hopefully to set a valid lap. This is not the first lap he's tried, and the answer is going to be he does not get a lap together. Now, we do have Serd Becker here as well, and that's what I need to ask John, not today necessarily, but I need to try and find him in the paddock at some point and ask whether he and Serd, or our Serd, whether they are family members, because they share the same surname. Doesn't mean they are family, to be fair, but it could be the situation. But if we're going to talk about John Becker, let's talk about the man also in the Suds Motorsport Red Machine. It is Flavien Thierry, and again, a huge thank you to him for providing the iRacing replay file to enable us to do this broadcast, and Flavien now back for his 3rd season. And many of you may remember him, of course, as the man who joined the grid in season 1 in the club class, and in the end made his way into the interclass midway through that season. And to be fair to him, he took it in his stride to move to the interclass, and last season didn't do too bad. He's back this season again, and right now looking quite quick and looking to try and make a campaign this season for a top 3 in the championship, if not go for the win. He was overshadowed a bit by the Motorsport and Cuda Academy drivers, and also John Chamberlain. At the same time as well, we know that Flavien has a lot of pace under his fingertips. He's just got to have the opportunity to show it. That's what he's trying to do here. He's currently the 2nd fastest of the interclass, but Oliver Kemp, well, Kemp right now, the best part of half a tenth quicker by comparison. As he makes his way on through, who's at the top? Well, we had a new name make their way to the top of the order. It's a Ferrari 488 GTE Evo that's being piloted by Florian Gelder as he makes his way on through the corners right now. And the Frenchman looking quite quick out there, no doubt about it. And I do apologise if I'm butchering some names out there. It's not my intention, of course, but I've got to get used to the names. And in fact, I think it is Florian Gouda rather than Gelder. So we'll try to refer to Mr. Gouda properly going forward. And indeed, if I haven't got anything butchered, I'm sure many of our drivers who may catch up with this broadcast later, if they're not doing so right now, hello to you if you are, well, I'm sure you'll correct me, and indeed my DMs are always open on Discord if there's anything that does need to be corrected. But as Gouda makes his way in towards Stowe corner, flashes headlights there and signs by the Gavmax cars, and he just stepped aside. That's Gavin Corby. Well, it's going to be interesting to see how Gavin gets on. And indeed, we have seen Gavin race GT3s with us at SimRacing International, but not GTEs. This is his debut season. This is his debut event. Now, for the uninitiated, if you don't know about GTEs, what do you need to know? Well, we're going to save that fault for when we come into the warm-up session, which is after this qualifying. It's a 5-minute session, and we'll take you through a brief history and what you need to know about the GTE machines. But what we do need to know as well is what it looks like to do a lap around the Silverstone circuit in one of these machines, and to bring you said lap, well, who better to jump on board with than one of the drivers who's coming up to the end of the current lap, and that is GPX Simsport's Clyde Vella, as he makes his way through the last couple of corners, and well, coming in towards club, and he does so. Let's hop on board then his Porsche 911 RSR to see what we can do over a lap. So making his way down then for what will be his penultimate flying lap, and going in towards Abbey. Turn number 1 here, at most it's a lift and coast, otherwise it's flat out through the corner. Abuse the downforce and roll on through the farm and up towards turn number 3, but understeer catches him wide, and Vella in the end goes straight on there. Oh, could this be? And hits the sausage curb, and in the end will straighten the corners, does what the Lego F1 machines could not do at Silverstone earlier this year. If you know, you know. And will Vella in the end will have to abort that very quickly. So that was a bit of an adventure, and hopefully we're not going to have the curse of trying to get on board lap and it always going wrong. As we jump aboard with Flavien Thierry then, and well, as he tries to improve, he's currently pole now in the interclass, but can he go a bit faster? Here he goes for his final flying lap, or his penultimate lap we should say, coming through turns 1 and 2, and he does so, bring the car to the left hand side here, braking down to turn number 3, as he comes all the way down to second gear, out to the right and in towards the left of the loop here, looking to his left hand side and trying to nail that apex in second gear. Some will drop to first, but not Thierry. He holds second as he now makes his way through the left hand at turn number 5. Onto the Wellington straight he goes, and as he does so here, just keeping the throttle absolutely pinned at this point, heading up into 5th gear and looking to his right hand side for his brake mark. It will be as he makes way into Brooklands and Luffield, field. Well, taking it nice and easy there on the brakes, rolling off. And, well, as he now makes way from left into right here, coming through left field. And trying to V-shape the corner as much as possible here to get a bit of an earlier apex, but taking so much curve there, and I think actually calling the apex a bit too soon. So as TF3 now makes his way on through Woodcock Bend, flat out through turn number 8. Lets the car drift out nice and wide here as he looks to his outside. He'll be that left-hand board there and breaking his way in towards what will be the fast right-hand there of Cops. And will carry on speed absolutely perfectly as he now gets ready for the SS sequence of Maggots into Beckett. Into left-hander initially here, and will just gradually come off the throttle. And in fact, I think TF3 might be cooling the car down at this point to get ready for one last lap. We're going to stay on board for the remainder of this, just to give you an idea what it looks like on board. But he is definitely lifting and coasting into those braking zones rather than braking, and that is to save some tyre temperature. And now he makes his way out of Beckett and heading down and the hanger straight and getting ready for Stowe Bend, arguably one of the hardest corners at this circuit alongside Cops. And he does back off entirely there. He's going to be letting another driver go, or is he? Has he got somebody approaching him? But as he comes through Stowe, when he comes through here, it will be in 4th gear. He'll try to hold it as best as possible, and it's part of around about 110 miles an hour as he pulls aside there. But car coming into pits, so TF3 is going to give it one more go very shortly, and he's just been winding himself up for that final flying lap. So as he does get himself set with 40 seconds left on the clock, are we going to get on board with him once again? I think we are. And well, here he goes, ladies and gentlemen, for one final lap. And this time, let's see him at full pace. So here he goes then, onto his final qualifying lap. In towards the opening corner he goes. That 50 board really attacking the corner there, mounting the curve as aggressively as possible. Then through the sweeping left-hander. And as he gets ready now in towards turn number 3, sharp of the brakes. He can hear the screech of the brakes as he makes his way through Village. Now as he gets ready for the loop, coming in towards the left-hand hairpin. Notice there, down to 1st gear this time, so does use first, running an attack lap, and now out of the kink of 5. And onto the Wellington straight, building up the speed as quickly as possible as he leaves Aintree behind, and down Wellington, getting ready for Brooklands into Luffield. Looking over his right-hand side here, the 50-metre board will be where he gets ready to go on the brakes, and as he does so, we'll run all the way down to 3rd gear, mounts that curb, and now smoothly to the inside of Luffield here. And will he U-shape it this time? Yes, he will. Brings it nicely back together there, and TF3 plants the throttle. Oh, a little twitch there of oversteering to understeer, corrected the car, and just about kept within track limits. And as he makes way for Woodcock on the National Straight, now getting ready for this braking zone in towards Cops. Looking to the left, it will be just before the 50 board, braking about 75 metres a quarter apex, down to 4th gear. Understeers out wide, and for TF3, that is going to be his qualifying session completed, because that is an off-track, and well, he won't be going any further than that. As meanwhile, Nathan Alou is making his way on through, and as he does so, well, what's it going to be for him as he rolls his way through the corner? We pick up the story then with the man who's currently trying to go for pole position in pro and overall. He's got to try and beat Gouda by what is 3.5 hundredths to do so, and as he makes way through Maggots into Beckett here, gradually descending his speed, holding 5th gear initially, then dropping to 4th, now dropping down to 3rd. No, holds 4th there and actually stays in the low RPM band to try and get a better run out the corner, but he makes a ham sandwich of it and backs off as well. So no improvement there from Alou, and well, he'll be starting 2nd at best. As Brandon White then, the only driver now on the lap, and indeed time has been completed otherwise, and well, it's currently Florian Gouda, who is your provisional pole sitter, pro and overall, ahead of Nathan Alou, and then we do have Tim Perry a further 300ths behind, and it's a further 2 tenths or so to Benny Witter, I do believe we should say, and well, Vita, as I just double-check my pronunciation notes there, as we do see the Datsun machine of Brandon White make his way on down there, and hopefully not powered by a Datsun engine, I can tell you that. There should be a Porsche engine in the back of that. But he comes through the long right-hander of Stowe, right now trying to bring this to a close. But can he go higher than 5th place in the interclass? The answer is no. He stays 11th, and that is qualifying definitely done and dusted. And so, well, out of our 27 drivers here today, we've only had 23 put valid laps together. No lap set by Jesus Saavedra. And well, right now the 215 driver making their way through the corners in the Fluidity V Racer machine. And well, is this going to be a final lap to it? Although if so, it is going to be very late. I do believe that is Hosho Marine on the side of the car, who is a V-tube, I want to say. I must admit, whilst I'm okay with anime, the Japanese, of course, format, I'm not too afraid with VTubers, but I know a few friends of mine are. And if you are a VTuber person, do let us know if that's Hosho Marine on the car. I think it might be, but meanwhile he'll park up there, and as he does so, well, Jesus Saavedra, there's no lap set, but it is going to be Gouda and Alou on the front row, pro and overall, with Tim Perry and Benny Vitter just behind them. And then we will have Bobby Paceman starting 5th, ahead of Flavien Thieffry, who will be your Interpol sitter, 6th just ahead of Oliver Kemp and none other than Ben-Luca Eckel. And then we will go all the way back to 15th place to find none other than what will be your club pole sitter, Brian Beardsworth, with a sizable 4 places to Gareth Newton, who will be starting 2nd in club, 19th overall, just ahead of Karolis Vazkevicius, who completes the top 20 and 3rd in the class. But as we now head into the 5-minute warm-up period, we've got a little bit of breathing room before we do go racing. And of course, now with the quiet and silence that's out of the circuit, we do have an opportunity perhaps to talk a little bit more about our class of driver and machinery. Indeed, we do have these GTE cars out there. As Ben-Luca Eckel keeps us entertained by taking his Porsche 911 RSI out into the circuit. What do you need to know about GTEs if you're unfamiliar? Perhaps this is your first time tuning into a GTE race, or the first time you're tuning into the SimRacing International GTE Championship. Well, the GTE class no longer races. It raced from 1999 through to 2023 and debuted in 1993 as the GT class, as it was labelled, in the 24-hour Le Mans, American Le Mans Series and European Le Mans Series in 1999, and in the FIA GT Championship it was labelled as NGT, or Next Generation GT. It made its final appearance in 2023 as the LM GTE AM class in the FIA World Endurance Championship, which of course now extremely popular around the globe in the fact that it has recently announced, of course, with the ongoing conflict in the Middle Eastern sphere of the world, particularly around what is the Iranian region, that we have seen now the shifting of races from Bahrain and Qatar to Monza and the circuit of Barcelona, Catalonia to ensure the continuity. But that aside, that's a bit of a distraction in the fact that, of course, the GT class made its final appearance in 2023 as part of the World Endurance Championship, and its final race was the 8 Hours of Bahrain, as won by the Iron Dames, the all-female racing team, which was a huge achievement for them at the very final race, and indeed an accolade they can always take now for prosperity. The final 24-hour Le Mans being won by none other than the Corvette C8R, as we mentioned earlier on, indeed won by one of the oldest drivers to ever win Le Mans as well. And where his name escapes me, and I believe in Ben Keating, his name immediately comes back to me. The man, a privateer, a man with a lot of money, and normally when you do have rich privateers get on the grid, you normally think, well, they're paid drivers, not going to do well. Ben Keating is a story and a half, ladies and gentlemen, and indeed one of the best stories of the motorsporting world. I will stand on that podium and defend that statement all the way through for the next few years, because he really has become one of the most celebrated drivers out there and one of the most respected drivers out there, despite where he came into the racing, but definitely taking the racing so seriously that you think the race has been in his blood since literally day one of birth. But coming back on track with regards to the GTE class, the cars were based on available for sale road cars at the time, featuring at least 2 doors and 2 seats, and the engines were modified variants of production road car engines. The car's minimum weight had to be 1,245 kilograms or 2,745 £5 if used old Imperial units, and that includes driver and fuel, subject to any balance of performance adjustments, so any extra weight added into the car or taken out the car for the purposes of balance of performance. The engine displacement was a maximum of 5.5 litres if naturally aspirated, so the cars you see here that are naturally aspirated are the Corvette and the Porsche, of which we have a couple of Porsches on the circuit at the moment, but no Corvette, or it would be 4 litres of displacement if forced induction. So, for example, the BMW and the Ferrari, one of those Ferraris, of course, being none other than Heza Saavedra's Felinity V Racing Rose machine, and also you do have the BMW M8 or the Giga Grill machine. Jesse Payne Wilkins there, representing Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport for this season by looks of things, the Privateer, and, well, the BMW there, which twin-turbo V8 engine. Now, it's a very tightly controlled set of regulations with regards to the aerodynamics. So these cars have a lot of aero on them, more you could say than the GT3 machines that replaced them, but they were tightly controlled to the point whereby adjustments were limited compared to what you can do with a GT3 car by comparison. Now, traction control systems, TCS, are permitted, so you will see traction control lights flashing inside these cars when they get a lot of excess wheel spin. However, what is the difference between these cars and GT3s, beyond the aero package, is the fact that these cars do not have ABS or anti-lock braking systems. You as a driver are the ABS. You have to modulate the brake and make sure you do not lock up the brakes. Now, the pit regulations are also very interesting in these cars as well, and the regulations in iRacing mirror the regulations when these cars were retired at the end of 2023 in the FIA World Endurance Championship, whereby fuel goes into the car first and then tyres are changed if desired. And this is part of the World Endurance Championship regulations in 2023, which explicitly state, and the line that confirms this is, and it took me ages to find this with the help of my good friend and fellow administrator of this series, Jack Barker. Huge shout out to Jack for all the hard work he does behind the scenes. And it was the fact that in the end, the regulations stated refueling can only be done when all 4 tyres are touching the ground. Well, to change tyres, the cars have to go up on their installed air jacks, so therefore you cannot refuel the car if the tyres are not touching the ground. What else do you need to know? Well, we also do have in iRacing now the ability to adjust the anti-roll bars to these cars, but not the rear wing, and that will add 10 seconds onto the pit stop as the iRacing 2026 Season 3 update. So that is new for this season in pit stops. The drivers may choose to change the anti-roll bar settings to invoke more oversteer or understeer in the car, particularly in unmixed weather conditions races. But that is a bit of a story with regards to GTE machines. Of course, there is one exception, not here today, the Ford GT, with regards to being available based on a production car. And well, it's a bit of a controversial car, the Ford GT. We will save that story for another time, because I know it does roll the blood of some people out there. But right now, we're all riled up for the fact it is time to go racing. Our warm-up is complete. It's time for 90 minutes of racing here at the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit. Who's going to take the honours in our pre-season event with no points on the line, just bragging rights? Let's find out as we make our way onto the grid. And as we do, certain the clouds come over. How do our drivers line up? They line up so. On pole position for this pre-season event in the SimRacing International GTE Championship Season 3, brought to you on iRacing at Silverstone, is none other than Florian Guder. The full tilt virtual motorsport driver being joined on the front row by Nathan Alou. Then we do have behind the two Frenchmen who lock out the front row. It'll be the Englishman at his home circuit, Tim Perry for Scuderia GPX, looking to try and make it the victory. He'll be joined on that second row by none other than Benny Witter, the Reptile Racing driver, who'll have his teammate Bobby Paceman right behind him. Then between the two Germans, we do then see the Frenchman, Flavien Thieffry, the pole sitter for the purposes of the Interclass for Supersport Racing. A very impressive pole lap for him, but 4 attempts off of the top 5. Starting 7th, Oliver Kemp for Concord Motorsport, ahead of Ben Luca Eckel, the Leopard Esports driver. And then we do see Kai Hitchler, his teammate, sitting just behind him there, the best part of 36 thousandths adrift. LEP Motorsports Max Wheeler starts in 10th place, and then we do see behind the top 10 in 11th it's going to be Brandon White. We're in the company there of Robert Papai. The Injury Heroes driver, like the Xbox Racing driver, ahead of Zamba RP Motorsports, none other than what will be their Bent Labant. And then we do have John Ludbert for GPX Simsport in 14th place. 15th on the grid, it's Brian Beardsworth for GPX Simsport, your club pole sitter, just ahead of Jesse Payne Wilkins, the privateer. And then we do have Kevin Smith for Verano Esports starting 17th, just ahead of Clyde Vella for GPX Simsport, with Gareth Newton, his teammate, 19th, second of your club drivers, and there'll be a Korolis Kevicius starting in 20th place, completing the top 3 of the class. Then coming out of the top 20, Gavin Corby for Gavs Max Races starts 21st at the Dwayne Hoffman for Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport. Then it's going to be Sarah Becker ahead of Jesus Saavedra, with John Becker and Ellen Olsen completing your 13th row, and Andrew Fellows will complete your 27 starters. But as quick as that, ladies and gentlemen, they make the way through the last couple of quarters. It's time to go green for the first time this season, and it's over to Florian Guder to take us away. As he does so, builds up the speed, and we are green for this pre-season race here at Silverstone. 90 minutes begins to tick away, and already it's 3 wide there in the middle of the top 5, as that's going to Oliver Kemp trying to make a cheeky move, getting his elbows out there versus Flavien Thieffry, and there's contact between the two already, and will the Reptile Racing car take space of action? Oliver Kemp go for a 360 spin there, but they all do very well to keep it together as they go to rejoin. But I mean, what's happening on the road is that Brian Beardsworth's had a good start. How he finds himself obscured there by what is the rejoining car. Oh, goodness me, well, it's been tragedy there down at turn number 3, and we're only catching the tail end of that right now, as that's Jesse Payne Wilkins, Clyde Vella and John Ludbert all coming together. But there's even more madness unfolded here, as that's a BMW that's got a bonnet that's been very much raised up, or front bumper that's been raised into the stratosphere. And Gavin Corby just avoided all the madness that's unfolded in front of him. Well, goodness me, you could not make up that story when that's how it's all gone down. But still more to come, no doubt about it. As unfortunately, we did lose Nathan Alou from the grid before he even went green flag race. The technical issue of the car. Hopefully we'll get to see him out there in due course. In fact, I think he has actually left the pit lane, or is making his way out of the pits now. There he is. He's in amongst all the drivers, so he has started the pit lane. And well, he's now going to fight his way through it. We'll show us a lap down initially, but he will be put on the lead lap in our time attack in a couple of laps' time. But meanwhile, at the front of the field, Florian Guder is still pushing on for Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport as he makes his way through Maggots into Beckett. And, well, weaving his way through, but Tim Perry is staying with him. The Ferrari drives at the front right now, and Benny Witter a little bit further behind with Ben Luca Ecker for close company as the Reptile Racing drive feeling the pressure, but still at the same time knowing that Ben Luca Ecker is going to just have to do as much work as he will in the battle of the two Porsches. Here to come down the hangar straight, and as they do, underneath the old bridge, and where it's going to be look for a move from Ben Luca Ecker trying to move into third place overall is your Inter leader, and we're going to make that happen. Smooth move there, up the inside he goes in the number 1, and just like that gets the job done. How the car weaving from side to side there, not a very comfortable car for the German driver. I think he'll need to try and get it settled down when he can. But further back, Gavin Corby there being passed by Andrew Fellows stuck up the inside, so Fellows now moves up to 4th place of the club class. And we do see John Becker trying to recover his way through the field as well, as I believe there's been a bit of an incident for Robert Papai. Oh, and he's turned around there, that's at the Vale, and the Enduro Heroes driver just parked up there. He's got nowhere to go as we look to the blimp camera. Car coming into the pits, that's John Ludbert with damage, and indeed a few drivers had to come into the pit lane, but others carried on. But as Korolis Vaskevicius. Oh, goodness me, I'm butchering his surname here. I'll come back to that one, ladies and gentlemen. I do apologise for the Britain. Indeed, I should know this off by heart, because there was a gentleman with a similar surname last season, and that was none other than Vidas Vaskevicius. Well, right now, as we do see, our 150 try and make his way through. We're definitely trying to keep his head down as much as humanly possible here and push on. The problem is he's got to chase after Brian Beardsworth. Not going to be an easy task here for Karolis Vaskevicius as he rolls his way through. There we go, got it right the third time of asking. But as he heads down the first long straight, well, looking a bit further back, there's Jesse Payne Wilkins looking to attack Sarah Berker. And right now the number 55 driver here, despite a bit of a difficult start, now he's getting his teeth stuck in. It does seem as though all the drivers settling down. Kevin Smith out this race, sadly, but otherwise everyone else still running at the moment. As we do see Payne Wilkins there trying to get close, but meanwhile, Vella versus Corby. Corby here trying to hold his ground, but Clive Vella going around the outside, and in the end finding out the facts that Cameron Corby on that inside line is just able to get the better run. This is all a bit of a learning experience for a lot of these drivers who'll be new to the GT class and using this as the best possible means to get themselves up to speed and learn the behaviour of their choice of car. But as they roll the way through, a bit further up the road, there's Flavien Tieffry onto the grass there. Hold up, where's Oliver Kemp? There's Kemp. So I wonder if there's been a bit of an altercation between the two of them, because there was a bit of one at the very start of the race. And well, it does seem as though right now that could be match number 2 between the two of them as the Concord Motorsports driver brings himself back together. But in the further rear view of the picture, we do see there Brian Beardsworth, your club lead at the moment, keeping Karolis Vaskevicius behind him. And then we do see Dwayne Hoffman there for Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport in 13th. Well, he's had a slow and steady start to this race, bringing Hayes Svedra along with him. And we're keeping an eye on the Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport and Valenti V Racing. They are sister teams, so therefore they will try to work together to a degree. As Vaskevicius making a bit of a mistake there, goes deep at the Vale, and well, comes back on. Hoffman gets through, but Svedra, does he get through as well? He does, going around the outside. Lovely move there. And well, now Vaskevicius has got to try and get himself back on the attack here, going in towards the opening bend into Abbey. Too wide they enter here is a valid move, and as they make the way in, both drivers are starting to respect each other's space, and in it is going to be Saavedra who does take the place back, as Gareth Newton now looks to think, how could I get involved potentially? But run the way through that right-hander, the GPX Sport driver, known best for his ability to extract some huge results despite not being the quickest driver on pace, and well, definitely looking to be right now in a very comfortable space. He rolls his way between the corners. Makes way down onto Wellington Straight. It's got a bit backwards for Sead Becker, who has now towed to the pit lane. We'll try to get a replay of that when we can. So he's not had a happy day, from what I understand. And it's not always works out for some drivers, but it's working out for others in the meantime. But what is the grand total of 2.5 laps of racing, where it's Florian Guda who still leads ahead of Tim Perry. The two Ferraris still breaking away to the tune of 2.3 seconds ahead of Ben-Luca Eckel, who right now is lapping the best part of a 10th slower than the leaders. He is your inter-leader behind the two top pros. Then we do see Max Wheeler, how he's come through the field, starting 10th place up to 4th, the LBP Autosport driver, ahead there of Kai Hitchler. And then we do see the Leopard Esports driver right now behind the top 2 of Inter, before he brings the third place man in the Interclass along behind him, and that's Zambo RP Motorsports there of Bence Labance, who the Hungarian driver now making his way on down the straight. And I do love the moustache on the front bumper of that car. That is a character of a car, I can tell you that. And Labance right now, well, 10 out of 10 for the moustache, good sir. And well, please don't shave it when we go to Fuji, because that's going to make a lot of people smile. I can tell you that. You've made my day already, Bence. But as he makes his way in towards the Vale right now, we can't focus the camera too much on that beautiful moustache. As meanwhile, we do see Benny Vitter running in 7th place. And Kai Hitchler has got around there at the Vale. And well, through the chicane, it's all gone wrong. He gets himself turned back around as he does so, finds some space for Leopard Esports, and he rejoins in 10th place behind Oliver Kemp and Flavien Tieffry, as Brian Beardsworth, your club leader at the moment, is best dressed in 11th place. So that's a quick recap of the top 11. But you can see there, Dwayne Hoffman and Heza Saavedra getting closer and closer, but I think there will be some teamwork between them, as Vasquez, what is none other than Vaskevicius, tries to hold off Gareth Newton once again, and Andrew Fellows now closing as they make the way up towards what we turn number 3. But as they head into that braking zone, well, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a little bit of a trip back in time and take a look at what exactly happened at the start of the race, including some of those big incidents. And we're going to try out some of our new features on our broadcasting software. Here we go. So as we go all the way back to the start, indeed, the field made its way through the final corner, and it was to Florian Aguda to take us away for what was 90 minutes of racing. Now we look to the blimp cameras they did. This gives us the best possible view. Now there was the 3 wide in the battle for 4th place there, and what was a BMW in the midst of it all, but we did see a chop at the inside there for Oliver Kemp, and in the end being caught there on the front of what was Flavien Tieffry's car, and well, good evasive actions there from none other than Bobby Paceman to avoid it all going a bit wrong. But then, a bit further back, things did go a little bit wrong for some tries. In fact, it went wrong in front and everyone had to queue up behind there. But everyone did very well to avoid being caught up in what was going down. But the big question is, what exactly did go down? I do believe Jesse Payne-Wilkins was at the heart of some of the other incident that occurred. And well, this is as Payne-Wilkins made his way in towards the braking zone for turn number 3. As he did so... Oh, goodness me! And that was the rejoin there from what was, I think, Bobby Paceman, clipping the car of none other than John Ludbrook, and that in turn went into the car of Payne-Wilkins. So that explains it was a chain reaction between all the drivers, and it all went very wrong. What did it look like from on board Clive Vella's perspective? And it's what it looked like from his dashboard. So you're going to see very shortly, it's going to be a BMW that's going to come into the right of the picture. In fact, we won't get to see it, but you'll definitely see John Ludbrook's car get turned. There goes Nathan Wilkins, and in fact, Clive Vella getting caught in it as well. So all 3 drivers being caught up there, and that's some very early drama. Ellen Olsen, meanwhile, also being caught up in a bit of the madness. And we had this for Robert Papai a bit later on lap number 1. And this was coming into the Vale right at the end of the lap as he made his way into that braking zone. And as he did so in the Corvette, minus a moustache, the rear of the car let go there, unfortunately. So unlike his teammate, was able to get through safely, only to have things go wrong a bit later on. Overall, definitely having it go wrong and falling all the way to the back of the field. But then we also did have a bit of difficulty for none other than Flavien Thieffry on lap number 2. As a lap later, 2 wide here of Oliver Kemp. And, oh, well, that's going to be a difficult one to call there, because some would argue that Flavien Thieffry has essentially shoulder barged his way past Oliver Kemp. Meanwhile, others would argue that perhaps Kemp there being a bit too tight to the apex. What did it look like from another camera angle, I wonder? Can we get an alternative? I think we can. So they made the way into Maggots into Beckett. Ooh, that's going to be a difficult one to call there, because some would say that Oliver Kemp's perhaps crowded Thieffry to the apex, or some would say he's just squeezed in there to try and make sure he backs out, but Thieffry wasn't backing out, Kemp wasn't backing out, so Kemp has come away the better of the 2 of them there, so I wouldn't want to be in the stewards room when that one is discussed. And we had this happen to Sead Becker on lap number 3, but a sad moment for him, and oh, where on earth is that? Well, somebody's found the gravel trap there, and with him as well, that is Jesse Payne-Wilkins. That's at turn 1. Both of them are coming together, and I think we can get the replay of what happened. And this was there as they made the way in towards the corner. So where was Sead Becker in all of this? He was just in front, got it round the braking, and Payne-Wilkins went straight into back in there. I think both drivers having issues with their cars, and unfortunately, Payne-Wilkins getting caught out there by Becker losing the rear of the car under braking in towards Abbey, or under rotation into Abbey, we should say, and it all went wrong. But this happened to Kai Hitched on lap 3. And this will be the last of the replays I believe we are going to get, but we come back to your live race in action. And this was Kai Hitchton making his way in towards the Vale, and the rear of the car just letting go there under the rotation. I suspect that may have been a bit too early of a downshift there, and he's caused the rear wheels to spin up on the limiter. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we're hopefully now going to make our way back to your live racing. And here we go. And there we go. And as quickly as that, we do come back to your racing action, of course. And there's still plenty more to come. And the great news is, we've literally left. We've come back to it as we left it. We have not lost any time for the race. This broadcast will be a little bit longer as a result, but you don't get to miss a single moment of the racing action in this post-round broadcast. As that's going to be a bit of a moment for what is none other than Maskevicius, who gets it wrong there through what was Brooklands, and was he rejoins, and that made me clench my back cheeks. I can tell you that, ladies and gentlemen, because that was Robert Papai there, definitely coming through. And, well, in the end, just being able to avoid what was the rejoining car of Vaskevicius, but that could have been far, far worse between the 2 of them. But in the end, getting it wrong under braking there into the corner, and both drivers just about surviving that. But it could have been far, far worse, but thankfully it was not, as they make the way onwards. Definitely a bit of a big amount between them all. But as they kept charging on through, there's still more to come between our drivers. And, well, as you can see him make his way through the corners right now. Your 150 driver here holding Clive Vella at bay. Now looking to Brian Beardsworth in the meantime. He's found some friends to play about there, albeit they are inter-class friends, not club-class friends alongside him. And as we Dwayne Hoffman going up the inside of your 188 driver, makes the move there into Stowe. And straightforward as that, smooth move. And now will we see Saveja look for the move as well? And the answer is going to be no, not quite. In the rear of the picture, a bit of a change of foot here. That's going to be John Becker trying to go around the outside of Gareth Newton. And gets very close to the apex there. I think Gareth had to back off entirely as he made his way through the corner. I think he was worried about the contact. He's going to try and go for it again here in towards Club Bend. And the answer is going to be denied. But Gareth Newton now definitely will feel as though his nose has been chopped off a little bit. But one driver we haven't talked about so far today, Ellen Olsen from Valenti V Racing Pink, doing quite a good job at the moment. She is. She makes makes his way through turns 1 and 2. Now, of course, also racing under the name of Solstice. I do believe we'll stream all of her onboard racing action over the course of the season, so definitely go check out her Twitch channel if you want to get some onboard style drives. A lot of drivers do stream, to be fair, their races, so you always have that aspect as well as this official broadcast available to you. We always encourage you to go support your favourite drivers. But right now, who's going to be leading the way out of these two? Here's a Svedra, or alternatively, will it be Brian Beardsworth? They make the way towards turn number 6. Is going to be the Spaniard who moves ahead there, Beardsworth, and finally clears the club leader, who now has Andrew Fellows getting a bit closer. Still more to come as Olsen tries to attack Gavin Corby, and we jump on board here with Olsen as she makes way out, and Corby loses the rear of the car, and Olsen there keeps the throttle pin, and Corby just getting on the throttle a little bit too soon, and well, that could have been Curtis of both of them there, but not quite so. And well, Gavin Corby definitely a bit too eager on the loud pedal, and I can imagine hitting the bump in the road there. There does exist a small bump or a small rise in the midst of Luffield, and well, that just sends the rear of the car slightly on round. But still more to come, and as we do see there's some of you giving thoughts, including Timothy Perry, or Tim Perry as he's known, saying the moustache is hilarious with regards to none other than Vince LaBunch's car. And well, as we do see it make his way down right now, we get you the moustache once again there, and well, if he has a moustache like that in his driver profile photo, ladies and gents, I can tell you one thing, he will be getting the nickname of Moustache Man for a lot of us, but to be fair, those are the characters he loves to have. I wonder if he's got a tribute moustache to Nigel Mansell, if that's he's running. Perhaps he's a big Nigel Mansell fan, big Red 5 fan, you never know. But hello to you, Tim, there, as we also do say hello to Alira 2007, who says go, go, and that's to FTVM, I do believe. But meanwhile, it's not go, go for the club leader, who's no longer the club leader. That is Brian Beardsworth, who's gone round, and he's gone round at the valve there, so he drops all the way down the order. So for Beardsworth right now, things have gone from good to bad to backwards as quickly as that, and he'll be wondering what exactly he needs to do now to get himself back together. Well, first and foremost, recompose himself, and then get back on the march. But now he's got the best part there of 4 drives to pick his way past. Gavin Corby the first, and it'll be Ellen Olsen, then Gareth Newton and Andrew Fellows if he wants to return to the lead of the club class. Oliver Kemp battling with none of Brandon White this time. Well, he's had his fight with one red car in the form of Flavien Tieffry, but right now he's finding himself battling with a red and white car instead. And Oliver Kemp there having to go very, very conservative through the left into right of West Brooklands into Luffield to make sure he didn't lose that place. As they come on through and in towards what will be the next corner. Right now, Oliver Kemp holding on to that full place in the IMSA class. As he does so, well, at the front of the field, we have had a change of leader, it should be pointed out. Tim Perry has found his way past Florian Guder, and, well, exactly how that has happened, we will try and get a replay of that very shortly. In fact, that did happen on lap number 4, and here's the explanation as to how he made the move. So this was heading down the straight up towards Stowe, and in the end, peeling into the toe and out of it. And well, classic move being made here. Looks up the inside. Guder did not defend it too hard. I suspect right now both drivers here just simply focusing on running their races and running their races strategically at that. But then what happened to Brian Beardsworth in parallel on lap number 5? This was your club lead at the time, and he made his way through the corners, coming down in towards that braking zone for the Vale, and well, as he came through left and right, rear of the car let go there. That happened earlier on, of course, to Kai Hitchler, and well, another victim of the Vale chicane. The GPX's Onyx car there of Brian Beardsworth. As we do also take a look at Oliver Kemp battling with Brandon White, and he was behind him, of course. He did lose out after the altercation between himself and Flavien Tieffry earlier on. And when he made his way to the inside, coming down the Wellington Straight, 2 wide they went in. Both drivers there looking to try and fight for the space. Lovely move being made there by Oliver Kemp, and Brandon White not fighting too hard, and there's still a long way to go in the race as we return to your live racing pictures. As we do come back more time still in this race, no doubt about it, as Tim Perry there, so missed his overtake for the lead, had to sort the kids. Well, we managed to get that overtake back in there, so he may have now caught it, but in the meantime we do see these drivers making their way onwards. And I get the feeling right now Mark Kent's going there about pesky kids. That's reminding me of a Scooby-Doo quote, which is, I would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for those pesky kids, which is what the villains normally said after Scooby-Doo and the gang managed to solve the mystery. But right now, this is not a mystery, there's some whole card facts for you, and that is that Ellen Olsen Olsen's looking for the move on Gareth Newton for second in club. Here she goes up the inside. Does she have the bravery under braking? The answer is no, not initially, but Newton on that wide line there carries a lot of speed, a lot of understeer, and will make it the way in towards what will be the barrel chicane now. We're still too wide between the two over here. Who's exactly going to have it? They'll both be being encouraged on. Olsen get her elbows out a little bit there. I think Newton may have just come across and crowded. That's 6 to 1 and half a dozen the other, as the saying goes. And will they carry on the fight? But Olsen right now trying to break away. But here's Newton going back for the move, pushing Olsen down the start finish straight. It's getting a little bit personal between these two, but I can't say we're complaining at that, as Olsen makes her way through the opening bend. And well, opens up that gap enough for now. I think Gareth Newton there definitely give it a small bump tap to say, I'm coming back for you later on. And well, as they make the way through turns 3 and 4 right now, and Olsen up into second. Can she go hunting after the club win today? There's no points up for grabs, but there's definitely bragging rights. And of course, every little bit of experience matters when it comes to this pre-season event, particularly when a number of these drivers is mainly the first time racing the GT competitively outside of official races. But remember, of course, because we are deviating from the official schedule for this season, official races will be a good ground to get to know your car, but it won't be a good ground to practice for the circuits unless you can find a circuit equivalent given that deviation. As we do say hello to Solstice, in fact, who says, crazy pass by Crazy Cat indeed. Well, Ellen did a fantastic job there, and now can she find a way to make her way past fellows? We will see. Still a long way to go as these drivers pushing on. But of course, as they make their way deeper and deeper into the open half an hour, strategy will become an increasingly important factor. A bit of tyre preservation will be valuable. Do see Nathan Annell there make his way up past Andrew Fellows, and well, the Frenchman now up another position, starting from the back of the field, from the pit lane, and more work to do as they roll the way through these corners. But a 396 driver right now, well, understandably this will be a bit of a test for him. He's probably using this as experience to get a feel for fighting his way up the pack. If a race goes wrong, which over 10 rounds, surely one race is going to go wrong at some point. Nobody can have quite a perfect season. Well, the only driver who has had a perfect season in the history of this series so far is none other than Mirko Bortolotti, taking that infamous runner wins in season 1 to become the inaugural pro champion, winning every race that he attended despite being pushed the distance, particularly by Tim Perry, I think, who was the driver in the end who took what was Bortolotti the distance at Road Atlanta, if my memory serves me correctly, and it literally came down to strategy and what was minor margins in the end. But those were some sensational races, and indeed we've seen some sensational race in the GT class here at SimRacing International over the last what has been a year or so. If anybody remembers the American GT Challenge, where we got to see some great fighting there. But Olsen looking for a move. Andrew Fellows outbreaks himself, and Olsen's going to move into the lead there of the club class as Andrew Fellows just feeding the pressure, and Olsen turning the wick up now, but suddenly Gareth Newton starts to get closer as well. And there's more to go between these drivers. They rolled one out, and well, Olsen definitely making a bit of a good move out to that one. Fellows just feeling a bit too much pressure, and here comes Gareth Newton for a move now, looking to the inside. And what's it going to be here? The answer is nothing at the moment, although Fellows is going to go deep again. That'll put him on the inside line to defend through what will be Luffield. But of course, Newton at this point going for the switchback. But will he be able to make it happen? The answer is no. So still pinning this move down is Andrew Fellows and saying to Gareth Newton, there's only one place I'm going to lose, not two. But I think right now Gareth Newton is not taking no for an answer as they make the way in towards Copse Corner. Ellen Olsen gradually gapping at these two now, and this is bringing Robert Papai and also Gavin Corby back into the equation very gradually indeed. And I do believe we are still yet to see whether Papai can make his way past these club drivers and potentially see if he can get into the interfight for what will be a further spot up in the top 10 of the class. He has got a comfortable gap to John Ludborough and Jesse Payne Wilkins, but I think he'd want a lot more than that. As these drivers make the way down the hangar straight once again. You can see that Gareth Newton definitely losing out now as here comes Papai, looking one way than the other in the rear of the picture in the yellowy, orangey, red car. No moustache on the Corvette. And well, as he makes one around right now, still a bit more work to do for the Endu Heroes drive from Hungary. Then again, he has still got the distance, and we'll come a little bit more about the strategic consideration shortly and what exactly we can perhaps expect for this season and why Silverstone could be a very good gauge of what to expect strategically this season. As Fellows struggling there coming through the veil, and well, Gareth Newton says you snooze, you lose, and he's not going to sleep on that one. And well, Andrew Fellows loses 2 places there, goes a bit wide, but lovely move being made there. And well, Gareth Newton up into second place in the club class. But I can see a few requests there, including from Lambo Chevy, saying wanting to see the move being made by Ellen Olsen. And well, we'll just hold the phone for a brief moment there. As new Sergio's making the way through turns 2 into 3 and 4. No change there between Newton, Papai and Fellows. And so we do go back in time quickly for the move that was made by none other than Ellen Olsen for the lead of the race. And this was Olsen making a way around the outside of the end, putting the pressure on Fellows, broke himself there, front right lock up, and we'll have the momentum going through the first two corners. Olsen really turning up the wick, and that's how the move was made. Lovely move, Mellon, no doubt about it, as we head back to your live racing. As we do come back, we come back to Gareth Newton feeling the pressure from Robert Papai. So I was only saying moments ago, Papai wasn't close enough to make a move. And as soon as we come back to him, he is going to make the move here, going down in towards Brooklands. And well, that's going to be for 16th place overall. So Newton loses out. But to be fair, he doesn't lose any more than what will be overall position. Well, in fact, he's going to come back here as Papai overcooks what will be left field corner. But Newton does back off there, doesn't want to push it too much. Worried about how this fight is going to cost him time. We're coming charging around on to the national straights here. Well, we look back from the rear of your 210 Interglass Corvette. And well, no move being made there by Gareth Newton. Scott's been way too far back to think about making that move. But understandably, thinking that he might be able to get a bit closer and put further pressure on. And well, he'll need to get a move on because Olsen is now already 4 seconds clear of Newton and Fellows. That is not helping out at all right now, then being caught up and entwined with Papai. And we do see Olsen getting closer and closer to the back of Becker by comparison. So John Becker, pace is slipping, and well, this lap so far, he has been slowed by the best part of 6/10 of a second. Olsen goes to move up the inside, and that's going to be for 14th place overall. And one other overall place gain. Try to put as much daylight between herself and the rest of her club class peers. And a smooth move from the Fidelity V Racing Pink driver. And we do say hello to another Bad Brains 9X, and well, a little bit of a chip hatch in there in regards to the emoji. Not quite sure what that means in relation to the broadcast, but hello to you either way, good sir or madam. As meanwhile, we say hello to a bit of battling here. Dwayne Hoffman, the Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport, feeling the pressure of Heza Saavedra, and also Nathan Alou. And right now, the Frenchman's still trying to carve his way back through the field, little by little. He's halved the deficit already from the back of the field to 13th. He's now just got another 12 drives he needs to clear to have an opportunity to be right at the front. Remember, he was the driver who started in second place on the grid, but had to tow to the pit lane due to a technical issue with the car. And will start from the pit lane, the best part of what was 30 seconds behind the field. But given what happened through the opening few quarters, the instance there, it's actually helped him close up quite a bit. Makes way down the Wellington Straight this time. But getting ready for the move on Saavedra. Is he going to go for it? He is going to go from quite far back there. And well, the Spaniard sees it coming, leaves the door open just about. And now looking around the outside here, Alou risking it through Luffield. And well, as he comes out to the quarter here, naturally he will take that wider line and have the better flow of the road surface there to be able to build up the power. And Saavedra in the end does not decide to fight it all the way down the national straight and lets it go. So Alou now up into 12th. Next target will be Dwayne Hoffman for another overall position. As meanwhile, we look back to Bence Labance, I should say, and right now the Zambo RP Motorsport driver making his way onwards, being chased by a reptile there of Benny Vitta, and well, the reptilian Porsche, definitely a lovely car there. And if you look close enough, you can definitely see these scales on the side of the reptile racing car, and it really does come alive, that livery. I think we're not doing a best livery award this season, but we've got some huge competitors for it, I will tell you that. And he's got his wipers on, but as he makes way through, those wipers are on not because rain is expected to fall today, far from it. Indeed, we're in a bit of a heat wave and a bit of a drought here in the central of England currently, but it is because he's getting debris and dust off the windscreen there, which will be kicked off from the car in front, but also from the fact that as the wind blows over the circuit, it will push bits of gravel, push dust around, and that gets picked up onto the windscreen, and it can obscure some visibility. As the German makes his way down in towards turn number 3, and as he does so, Vitta right now still trying to look for a move there to get into the top 5, but he's got a long way to go if he wants to catch up to Perry and Gouda, who are still well clear in first and second overall, and are his main pro rivals today. But as we do also say hello there to none other than Flavian Tiefri in the YouTube chat, and well, I'm saying hello Paul and SRI friends, and hello to you Flavian, and again, just to say a big thank you to you for the replay file that we're using for this broadcast. We said that a couple of times earlier on, but of course we always want to say if you're here, and definitely you've come in clutch for this pre-season broadcast, no doubt about it. As meanwhile, there's a bit of change there. Gareth Newton being passed there by Robert Papai, and I get the feeling that was a bit of a forceful move there. I don't think there's any contact between them, but Papai definitely making it clear to Newton that he wanted to get on through. As meanwhile, also change there. We'll catch all the tail end of moves right now because Nathan Alou making it up the inside, way out the inside of Dwayne Hoffman for 11th place. So the Frenchman now clears the 7th place into driver and forces Hoffman to have to worry about Heza Saavedra, who's getting closer and closer. As they power the way onwards and down towards Cox Bend. Right now, we've still got the best part of an hour or so to go. And Dwayne Hoffman, I think we're trying to cook up a strategy here that can move him forward. But as as we do get the on-board here at Sverger. This Ferrari, of course, a very interesting car, as we've seen in previous seasons, in the fact that it is the car perhaps with the most sensitive tyre operating band, although that band has been widened in more recent balance performance updates, particularly in 2026 Season 2's iRacing update, where the Ferrari has been made a bit more of a competitive car and not a very delicate car that's exceptionally quick when it's in its operating window, but outside of it, it really struggles. So the Ferrari now really on a bit more of an equal footing, although perhaps the least popular car in the GT classes racing officials currently. The popularity typically being Porsche and Corvette. Then you do have the BMW and the Ford taking a good share together, and the Ferrari being a bit more of a specialist car, although you could say the BMW, the Ford GT and the Ferrari 488 all specialist cars, but driven by some very exceptional drivers, no doubt about it. And Sverger being one of them here, and another exceptional BMW driver being Dwayne Hoffman as they come out of the corner and go on to next lap. But a better run out of club. So Sverger here thinks about it. Does he go for the move? The answer is no. Waiting behind there, and of course Ellen Olsen closing up to this, so is John Becker. They're all getting closer and closer as Nathan Allor just gradually pulls away, but this time Sverger looks at the move to switch back, and he's going to get better off the corner there. Bit of wheel spin and kicking in the traction control there for Hoffman, and as Sverger comes through the corner on the inside, a big twitch however, and the rear of the car just doesn't settle down, and that's the aggression through the hairpin there, coming out of the loop and almost looping the car instead. And what the Spaniards right now will see teammate Olsen behind and probably think, okay, what do I do now instead? Well, the answer is let Ellen Olsen go, because Olsen goes up the inside, and well, right now the club leader continue to crusade onwards, and the Flare TV Racing Pink 127 definitely shining bright here today. And as she continues to push her way onwards, John Becker being brought into the throes of this as well as they come around, and we do say hello there to Mad Power Turbo, who's enjoying and cheering on Heza Sverger, and these tries making their way into the second half of the lap. But absolutely phenomenal racing, indeed taking the words out of my mouth there, Lambo Chevy, to say peak racing, and this is what GTEs are all about. But there's fighting there, and there's fighting for fifth now, because this is Levance under pressure from Witter. Witter looking for a potential move here on the Zamba RP Motorsport driver. Can he get it done? No, he can't. But the thing is, this is bringing Oliver Kemp into the mix, and we know Kemp, when he gets things right, as we saw in the second half of Season 2, he can be a very quick driver, taking 2 wins towards the end of the season in the Interclass, and the 32 driver would have had more potentially if it were not for misfortune. And right now the Concord Motorsport driver getting ready to pounce this time as they make the way onto lap number 13. As they do, is he going to go for a move here into the corner? The answer is no. Instead he's going to wait a little bit as we come back then to Olsen versus Becker, and Becker trying to make his way around the outside. In fact, Ellen Olsen has been repassed by Heza Sverger. That's happened into Stowe. Well, Becker right now trying to make his way, trying to carve his way through. Dwayne Hoffman's also found his way back ahead. Indeed, everywhere you look right now, there are battles left, right and centre. And well, we can only catch one at a time. We'll try and get a look back at some of the battles in a moment as well. But fantastic fighting. Well, that's what it's all about, as Becker decides to carry way too much speed there through turn number 2. And wants to try and get the inside line there versus Olsen going into turn number 3. But the Dutchman right now not able to make that work whatsoever. And he's going to get himself set up for a move a bit later on. But as Sverger, meanwhile, runs a bit wide coming out of the loop. We're going for Aintree there, and also goes round on a tight line. Too much steering lock there and too much throttle combined together, unfortunately. It doesn't add up to 100, it adds up to a spin. And the Flare TV Racing Pink driver gets himself back together immediately. But suddenly, from the lead of the club class, it's now Gareth Newton who takes it back with Andrew Fellows. And Olsen rejoins in 3rd in the club class, 18th overall. But Brian Beardsworth and Gavin Corby not too far behind. But to be fair to Olsen, given the pace she's shown, she'll be expected to come back. As meanwhile, Andrew Fellows, he makes a complete ham sandwich of himself at Brooklands into Luffield, and the GTE Sport driver now gets himself back on the road very quickly. But they're all making mistakes out there, and well, I suspect right now these track temperatures, whilst they'll be relatively cool compared to most, this circuit is getting on. In fact, 36 degrees centigrade here, despite an ambient temperature of 90 degrees centigrade. The Silverstone circuit in direct sunlight, it can become very hot, and I think it's that heat plus the fact these tyres now starting to move away from their optimum more into what is their 70 to 80% window. That's when I started to see these mistakes come, as our drivers definitely feeling the test of endurance out of these cars, because of course 90-minute race rather than the 60-minute for our feature race. And well, here comes Olsen looking for a move on Fellows. He's still trying to get his tyres cooled down. He can cool them down, but it normally takes at least half if not a whole lap to do so. So Olsen on the left, Fellows on the right here. Battle of Porsche versus Corvette. We know that the Porsche typically a little bit faster in the straight compared to the Corvette. It's more the strategist car now, and once they come into the corner there, Fellows beating Olsen on the brakes. Olsen still looking for the move and tries to cut it back. Just a little bit of wobble of oversteer there coming out to Stowe, but that's understandable. Trying to go for the switchback, but as you feel that rear of that car sliding around, and Olsen there right now understeering into the Vale. That's the dirty air off the back of Fellows' car, and Olsen just trying to get herself recomposed here. Of course, it's been a bit of a rough lap for both drivers, and they both need to set themselves back to square one, and in doing so, we'll get back on the attack and plenty of batting later on. No doubt about that. But as they get ready for the next fight, well, meanwhile, we do take a look back up the order, and well, there we do see Bent Labant make his way on through the corner, and behind Benny Vitter and Oliver Kemp, still within 8/10 to one another. And the man who's only 2 seconds up the road, and well, you tell me, ladies and gentlemen, if you can see the 4 rings of Audi on Max Wheeler's car for LVP Autosport. I don't think he's actually put them on there this season. And well, to give you the context behind the running joke, very quickly, it is the fact that he's a massive Audi fan. He loves racing Audis, but there's no Audi available in GT. There never was one, I do believe. My memory serves me correctly. Audi never made a Grand Touring Endurance spec car, and therefore, whatever car he races, if it's not an Audi, he always puts the 4 rings of Audi on the car. There seems to be absence here, but perhaps that's because he's racing for LVP Autosport this season, and therefore they said no 4 rings, thank you very much, Max. But meanwhile, as we do look from him to behind, well, there is the Labance right now, being able to open a bit of a gap to Vitter, and Oliver Kemp inch a little bit closer instead. So it does seem as though now the pressure is on Vitter rather than Labance. And well, will the shoe be on the other foot before too long? That is what we'll have to see as they go on to lap number 15. A bit further back, we do see Olsen getting ready for a potential move from Maggots into Beckett versus Andrew Fellows, and well, as they roll the way now on towards the hangar straight, a good exit there out of Beckett's from Olsen, and wants to come on the chapel. It is now going to be a question of where does she go? Does she go to the inside or the outside here? Well, following it in the draft initially, and decides not to go for it. Instead, I suspect just lifts and coasts about 30 metres from corner braking point, and that's just to save some fuel and also saves the tyre life. But another little wobble on the rear of the car. They've really got that car set up loosely for Olsen here today, and that's to give it some good corner rotation. But again, you can see when you're trying to go for those quick dives to the other side of the circuit to set up a line, it just makes that Porsche less stable than it needs to be. A very good run through the Vale there, and right now Fellows will not appreciate having a Porsche glued to his backside as we ride on board here from the GPX Supersport 44. Looking backwards at Ellen Olsen, we're going through turn number 1, almost at the end of the first half an hour. Well, it's still Fellows holding on here, coming through. Abbey into farm, and as he makes his way into the village here, does he end up buying the whole farm with it? Well, no, he does not. He defends well, but Olsen looks around the outside, goes to the switchback, but Fellows right now absolutely putting up a wall here. Brian Beardsworth now only 1.1 seconds behind the pair of them as they fight, and here comes Olsen again, getting closer and closer and closer, and well, as she now pulls the inside, well, is it going to be Fellows defending around the outside? We'll have to see. Onto the brakes they go, and Ellen Olsen up the inside there. Does she get it stopped? The answer is yes, and that is having a second place again for Ellen Olsen in club for the TV Racing Pig, back into 17th overall, and now the target is Gareth Newton 5 seconds up the road, with Brian Beardsworth looking at this and thinking, perhaps it's now my time to shine, but I have to see if the GPX Sportscar can do that. And as he comes on through, well, meanwhile, and we do have confirmation there for Freewheeler Racing, the fact there are 5 Audi logos on there, and well, perhaps haven't looked closely enough, or perhaps that's a sign I need to go to Spec Savers, Max. You let me know what you think about that. But meanwhile, what we need to think about is the fact Oliver Kemp goes to move there on Benny Vitter, and will make his way out the inside of Vitter through the Vale, and well, goodness me, that's a bit of a change. And in fact, Max Wheeler is being caught up by these gentlemen very quickly. So Wheeler has had a very poor lap. In fact, that was a disaster lap from Wheeler, and that was 7/10 slower than the trio behind him, the LVP Autosport driver. He's definitely going to be thinking to himself right now, where has the time gone? I can see the Audi logo on the side actually now that I've looked closer. Thank you, Max, for pointing that out. As meanwhile, we do see Benz Labance. Well, he's getting close there. Oliver Kemp and Benny Vitter. And they're all going to get into that fight for full place sooner rather than later. As the fighting really now starts to build up, we've also got some moves being made by John Ludbrook. He's just past Gavin Corby. Gavin Corby has been in a bit of an error as well, it should be pointed out. We'll try and get a replay of that when we can. Meanwhile, Flavin Tiefri here getting ready to battle with Brandon White. Looking up the inside, that's not going to work there. He's going to have to wait a little bit longer for that 5th place move in the interclass. And also we have had a move being made by Hazer Sverger ahead of Dwayne Hoffman. And we'll come back to that when we can. But Flavin Tiefri being made to wait a little bit. And well, we'll keep you waiting no longer with replays of some of those big moments, including what was this from Gavin Corby having it go quite wrong. So this was Corby making his way down into the Vale as he went into the braking zone there. What exactly did go wrong? And the answer is carried way too much speed into the corner, then thought about getting the car stopped, but at that point the pendulum swung and the Corvette's rear end just let go. But he got it back together relatively quickly and we did well to catch the car. Then we had this for Jesus Saavedra, making his move on Dwayne Hoffman. On the inside there into the opening corner, and then looking around the outside from Abbey into Farm, and then into the village they went, too wide, under braking, and it's a very respectful race between them, but lovely move being made there by the Hosho Marine livery machine, and well, going on through turn number 4 and getting it done just like that, and John Becker and Papai having to watch on behind, and we did have, of course, what was this, Oliver Kemp making the move on Benny Vitter. And, well, I think it may have been the case where Vitter didn't have the best of runs there in the Reptile racing car out of Stowe. And Kevin then went all in. In fact, Vitter there really backed off. He was lifting and coasting. That was about 75 metres before you break into the Vale. And, well, perhaps Vitter decided, I don't want to be the lead car anymore. I'd rather follow and save some fuel. Well, how about that? And then we had this, of course, from none other than John Ludbrook, making his way on past none other than what was Gavin Corby. Straightforward pass here going down the hangar straight. Went to the inside. Corby didn't fight it too much, and that moved him up into 20th place. But with that, we head back to your live racing. As we do, bring your time back at the top and centre of your screen. Well, more still to come. Brandon White and Flavin Thierry continue their fight. Now, we do have Karolis Vaskevicius into the pit lane. We had a pit stop as well a little bit earlier on from one of our other drivers. In fact, I think it was from the same gentleman, sadly. So Vaskevicius having to come in now for a second time. I wonder if that is potentially for instant points and now coming in strategically. But that brings us on to a fault here, which is strategy today. A 90-minute race. Now, we have seen in previous seasons, given our pit stop regulations haven't changed too much. The only thing that has changed is the fact the anti-roll bars can now be touched on the cars. That adds 10 seconds onto your pit stop time, regardless of when you have the anti-roll bars changed. Or the point being the fact that we are expecting our drivers most likely not to change tyres here. So that's Oliver Kemp diving up the inside of Labance as Max Wheeler is into the pit lane. So Wheeler comes in and he releases Kemp and Labance, who are going to fight each other even more. So hold the fort on strategy for a moment. They're not going to let us talk about strategy. They want us to talk about fighting, and who can blame them? As meanwhile, Labance now goes back up the inside of Kemp. So Kemp swaps it back to the inside to outside line now for what will be Farm into Abbey, but then coming to the outside again in towards the village. Onto the brakes they go. Looking at the outside. Can he get it stopped? He can. Can he get to the inside of the loop? He's going to force himself to it. And in the end, well, gets squeezed the apex there. Labance does have to give him a little bit of room, but Oliver Kemp right now really fighting this hard. Absolutely ferocious battling between these two. And Benny Vitter just watching this as they make the way down. As they get ready for now the braking zone here for the next corner, looking up the inside, and he's going to go Lord in, is Kemp. And well, he's got to be careful them not making too much contact because the number of instant points, we'll talk more about that shortly as well, how that could have a big factor this season. As they come through Brooklandson's left field here, still too wide, respect being shown. An incredible race between these two. And right now, Benny Vitter, I think, just enjoying this as a spectator as they come through in towards what will be the National Straight. But who's going to be ahead come Copse Bend here? Well, somebody's going to have to back out into Copse. They can't both go too wide here. Well, they're going to try it. Kemp's going to try and hang it around on the outside, and in the end does so there, and Labance just manages to shave off enough speed to take the curb and not see the car understeer out wide. Now into Maggots, into Beckett's they go. They enter into left, then into the right hander. Kemp around the outside, but now on a much tighter inside line. Labance goes back around, then looks the inside here into Beckett's, but it's not going to work, and Oliver Kemp in the end does make the move happen. But now Benny Vitter's going to look for the move in turn as he powers his way onto the back stretch. Here he goes then, the pro driver wanting to get in amongst these two in-drives. It's been incredibly battling right now, and I think both of them don't want him to get in the way, and Vitter makes his way on the inside. Here goes to the move versus Labance, but can he get it done? 2-1 they come through. There's a tiny touch there, but that's not going to count for instant points. That'll be a 0x contact, I suspect. And as they come down into the braking zone here, Vitter is made to wait a little bit longer, but the Reptile racing driver absolutely pushing it, no doubt about it. But right now, it's really looking as though Oliver Kemp just has that advantage in the really nitty-gritty wheel-to-wheel racing. Meanwhile, look at this as they make the way onwards. That's 3 wide, but unfortunately, it's not 3 wide for position. It's 2 wide position, as we do see there Robert Papai in the Corvette for Inju Heroes, making the move versus Dwayne Hoffman, but he ducks into the pit, so Hoffman is released, and the BMW behind is the lap down BMW of none other than what will be Bobby Paceman there following him, and Paceman, of course, in that huge chance at the start of the race, not able to get involved right now, but trying to unlap himself as best as possible in the other Reptile racing car. You've got to feel for Bobby because he's got a lot of pace out there, but right now when you're a lap down, this is a really nasty place to be because you can unlap yourself. However, you've got to get past the car in front and then get a second gap within a lap typically to prove that you are not hindering the car you've unlapped. If you don't open out that gap, particularly if you stay only half a second ahead of the car you've just passed. That car or the driver and the team can take you to the stewards room and say that you're essentially impeding as a lap down driver. Indeed, it's a really tough spot to be in. And right now, and Pace will be hoping they can just get clear of what will be his driver in front and then make his way onwards. But we'll have to wait and see whether he can do so versus Dwayne Hoffman. He's going to go for it here into Woodlands, and Hoffman, to be fair, opens up the door so wide, invites him there and says to him, no, you can get back on to lead lap in front of me. I'm just simply not going to fight you because I've got a much more important race to win on strategy here today. But speaking of a man who's winning the race right now, and not just on strategy but on pace, it's Tim Perry for Scuderia GPX, and we're very much in control at the front of the field, with Florian Guder in second place, 10 seconds behind as he makes his way into the barrel himself. But look behind, and there's Ben-Luca Eckel, who right now is closing that gap down little by little. And in fact, on that last lap, has closed it down by 3 seconds. I believe there was a mistake for Guder. And, well, the German driver right now is not going to interrupt his rival when they make a mistake. That's always the most important thing. As has been said for the annals of history, never interrupt your opponent when they're making an error. And then look at Eckel. That time was the 10th slower than Guder, so Guder's back on his pace immediately. But as they come charging onwards, well, a couple of considerations being made there in Future Chat. We need to talk about them a little bit. And that is, of course, instant points being an issue this season, because super long races and only 17 instant points when you do see that drive-through penalty. And, well, that does mean when you consider you make an off-track, it is 1 instant point. If you do end up losing control of the car, it's 2. Make contact with another car that is considered more than just a slight tap between 2 cars, that's 4 instant points. 4 contacts, or 33 contacts with a couple of off-tracks, you've got yourself a drive-through penalty. And I think we have seen a couple of drive-through penalties already here for some drivers apply. And I do believe in particular for Karolis Vaskevicius, who is still in this race. He has made a couple of trips to the pit lane, but I think one of them he did drive through the pit lane rather than stop the car. So that's going to be a fault here. So drivers will be encouraged to drive as cleanly as possible and also really prioritise consistency and not make mistakes. But perhaps more prevalently, let's talk a little bit about strategy. What we did see last season, of course, for the 90-minute races, is it was really about either just putting in the fuel to get to the end of the race, alternatively, big lock up there for Andrew Fellows, and John Lovett's going to go around the outside, just simply take that place for 18th. Alternatively, we did see some drivers and teams opt to change 1 or 2 tyres, but remember the fact, because the fuel and tyres are separate, it is going to be the best part of what will be in 28 seconds to take all 4 tyres, if my memory serves me correctly. It is approximately 7 seconds per tyre on the car. So all in all, a fuel stop plus tyres, you're looking at about 50 seconds in the pit lane. If you change anti-roll bars, you're also going to be looking at another 10 seconds. It's almost a minute to make those adjustments. And in the wet weather races or the mixed conditions races, where we are expecting dry to wet transitions or the other way, that could really make or break there. You want to really tactically time when you make that transition. As all the drivers definitely right now keeping their heads down here. I think this is going to be just a fuel stop here today. We may see some drivers opt to change the left-hand side tyres, which will take a lot of wear, given the fact you've got a very high load. This is a high downforce circuit, a lot of stress on the tyres. You've got a lot of high-speed corners, and it does mean the outside tyres at every corner will be really feeling the wear. As Oliver Kemp keeping Ben Slabantz behind him at the moment, and Benny Vitter a further 6 tenths behind as they come in towards turn number 3. But as they do, Kemp hold his ground for now. And, well, we have just had Kai Hitchler go into the pit lane, making his way in, and, well, he drops the back into the top 10 at the moment, almost at the halfway point at the time. But as Tim Perry gives his fault here, the 2-hour races, very interesting with regards to his fault, saying that it might be the races where we do need to see tyres being changed unless the track conditions are super friendly, and that's definitely a good fault there, no doubt about it. But I wonder if we will see all 4 tyres being changed, because we did see last season, I think it was at Interlagos, there were some drivers who did gamble changing all 4 tyres, and their pace did improve by the best part of a second compared to those who had not changed tyres, or only changed 2 tyres, but unfortunately they didn't have enough time in the race to make that compound work. The delta on pace was about 15 seconds in the end that we did see come the finish line, particularly in the internal club classes. I want to say there was an incredible performance from one of our WePay 300 esports drivers who did go for the all 4 tyre change and almost managed to make it work to take back the places they lost, but they ran out of time by what was, I think, 5 minutes in race terms. But it definitely was one of those interesting ones, and those 2-hour races will definitely see tyre changes perhaps become a bigger draw factor. But as we're drawn back to the car of Ellen Olsen, it's because she's been able to catch back up to Gareth Newton. and making the way on through Woodcock Quarter right now. Well, Olsen still on the attack. But as quickly as we're drawn to her, we're drawn back to John Ludbrook, who's had a bit of a spin, and that is going to be at Brooklands. And well, it's gone very wrong for him. There's a bit of a dust cloud being kicked up in the rear of the picture, and that's where Ludbrook's recovered the car. But as quick as that, Gavin Corby there just in front of him. Ludbrook's going to look to try and get back ahead of the Gav Max Racing Corvette when he can. And we'll get him very close there, going through Woodcock Bend, perhaps a bit too close. Will decides to brave it around the outside. But as he does so, well, it's back to Newton and Olsen. Olsen getting a much better run from Magnussen to Beckett. And I think the lead in the club class is going to change hands back into Olsen's hands once again. Here they go down the hanger straight. Olsen peels out. Too wide to go in towards Stowe. And Olsen on the brakes there. And in the end, Newton, can he perhaps come back at it down the hill? Well, he's going to try to as they roll down towards the Vale. Weaver driver deflects towards the pit lane. The answer is no. And when then Ellen Olsen does take lead. Smooth move from Olsen. And, well, the Valenti V Racing pink driver from the Netherlands back in control for now and hoping not to make another mistake. As you can see there, the car really twitching on quarter exit. And, well, that's the worry factor there. And, well, very loose rear end on the car. But that's all about getting rotation. But the sacrifice being made is that Porsche right now definitely looking a little bit sketchy for these medium to high speed corners, particularly on the gear shift. But let's wait and see what that means in reality. As Max Wheeler, well, he has made his pit stop. And his pit stop being only fuel, 19 seconds. He drops all the way down to 15 and is now trying to get to the end. Fuel tank wise, again, we have unrestricted fuel tanks. It does mean now the races will typically be a one stop for fuel as we understand it. Potentially a minor splash and dash in the 2-hour races, but I think fuel saving is going to really be the priority there. And we're not racing the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez, of course, the home of some of the craziest strategies, particularly what we saw in Season 1. As, oh, that's a big twitch there for Gav Newton, who gets it back together, but as he does so, lose the overall place to Max Wheeler. As they make the way on around right now, well, it definitely, for Gareth Newton, a mistake there. It's the first mistake he's made all day today. He's been absolutely faultless up to that point. As Guy Hitchler goes up the inside there, Gavin Corby. Well, Hitchler came into the pit lane and opted to change, I think it was a single tyre plus take fuel for Leopard Esports. And I suspect it'll be that rear left tyre that has been changed. He's just taken the one to try and give himself better traction out of some of these lower speed corners. Roaring his way around. And up towards Waterby Cops Bend. That's up into 19th place, but still a way to go. Meanwhile, from the lead of the Interclass, as Ben-Luca Eckel make his way on down pit road. I won't say he's coming in for the stop there. He must be, because he's been very consistent. I don't think he's picked up the instant points, but what it will mean is that suddenly Oliver Kemp is your new class leader in the Interclass, and we do have Bence LeBunce currently running in second of the class there. But that's on track, not strategically, as Brandon White is feeling the growing pressure of Flavien Tieffry behind. All these drivers making their way on through the corners. And as they do, well, I'd also see some of you giving some thoughts there about the class assignments of some drivers, and where we might see some change. Now, to be clear, the classes you're seeing here today are provisional, and they will be provisional for the first 2 rounds of the championship, because we do understand here at SimRacing International, we've done everything we can. We've gone through reams of data. Yes, we have been looking at drivers' previous results in iRacing Official Series, and where we can find them in other championships as well, particularly when it's GTE is concerned, but you never quite have the right amount of data until you really go racing, and it is provisional at the class assignment until we get to the end of round number 2, and then we will be looking at locking in those classes unless it's an emergency, essentially, where we've got something so wrong, but that will be at the consultation of the drivers. As right now, well, we have to cut off that fault because that's a move, but it's not for Flavien Tieffry as he goes and exits stage right. We catch him in the gravel trap, and the Studsport Racing driver gets it all wrong there in Cops Bend, and Cops claims its first victim of the day in the form of Flavien Tieffry. But what an attempt there versus Brandon White, but it didn't work out in the end, and well, now he's got to do it all over again as Tim Perry is into the pits and lead this race, and Florian Guder is making his way back around. So Perry decides to make his way in, and he decides in turn, as he does fall to the bottom of the time tower there, but that is a timing line glitch, I do believe. You will see Perry come back onto the lead lap at some point, so don't panic there. But Florian Guder deciding to go a bit longer as Perry decides to cut his race into 2 halves, essentially. And, well, there's all different varieties of strategy out there, no doubt about it. Then look at Eckel pitting a bit earlier. 30-second stop for the Leopard Esports driver. So that's going to be fuel, plus also, most likely, 2 left-hand side tyres being changed. And, well, in fact, it might just be the 1 tyre there as he makes his way onto what will be the hanger straight. And we're in the tow there. Flash his headlights to Gareth Newton and say, look, I'm quicker than you. I'm in a different race to you. Please let me go when I get close enough to you. And to be fair, I would imagine that Gareth won't mind that. I think he'll be only if he gets flashed a couple more times. Eccles' rear there, really twitchy. That's the fresh tyre on the car, I think. That rear left tyre definitely still trying to warm up as more pit stops are now coming for drivers. A lot of drivers are cutting this race into two halves as they all make the way on through. But in fact, we've just had confirmation there from Tim Perry that no, he has opted to retire from the race, and that's because he has had what is not enough hydration in the cockpit, so I think the drink was not provided, and unfortunately he does not get the drink like Kimi Raikkonen, the infamous Formula 1 moment, of course, all those many years ago. And Tim Perry let down by his hydration strategy, and we can't quit a hydration break anymore. The World Cup has come and gone for 2026, and well, thank you for being on the grid today in this race, Tim, no doubt about it. Although sad it's ended that way, you've definitely given us a big marker with regards to what could lie ahead in the season of the Pro Class. It's going to be interesting between you and many of your rivals, including, of course, Bobby Bortolotti, also Gooder, and others. But as Brandon White continues to feel the pressure of Nathan Allul, well, understandably, this was a man who looked on pace to potentially have some fun with Perry and Gooder. He may still have some fun with Gooder at the front of the field, his fellow Frenchman, as Allul right now really trying to go for what is a last to first challenge here, and started from the pit lane. And well, making his way in towards what will be Stowe. Right now, he's not going to have an opportunity to be able to do so there, as Brandon White just holds his ground. But Allul getting closer and closer for every lap, and is matching the pace of our leader pretty much to the 10th and 100th. So it will be interesting to see where he can find any advantage later. Vince Labance, meanwhile, make his way into the pit lane as I look at my Conte booth window, so that will drop him down as, oh, hold up, what on earth's happened there? That's a bit of liberal use of track limit for Gareth Newton, and Newton's made another mistake. Well, that's a shock, and with it, the GTE Sport driver now gets himself back together as quickly as he can, and well, Ellen Olsen now will have the best part of a 12-second gap, but as he makes his way onwards, the GTE Sport driver will know that Brian Beardsworth is getting closer and closer, but both have yet to pit. Olsen has yet to pit as well. And Labance is being serviced as I look out my content booth window as Brandon White versus Nathan Allul. Here we go. Coming out to loop and through Aintree. And well, Allul's had the better run for the opening few quarters. Does he get the move done? The answer is going to be yes, he does. Gets ahead of Brandon White there. Lovely move from Nathan Allul. And as he now seals the deal going through at Proctons into Luffield, let's take a look back at how that move was made and also some of the other drama that occurred just beforehand. Here was the move firstly by Allul versus Brandon White. So it was a mistake there from White coming out of Abbey and in towards Farm Curve. Took too much speed, was off momentum, and then Allul tucked up the inside and got it done just like that. Although White did try to come back at him going in towards the loop, but in the end he gave him the space. But taking so much curb there, including a bit of the sausage curve for White, and that's what led to the call. And a poor X out the corner, and Allul in the end just gradually powered his way past. With great respect shown between the two drivers, and a very smooth move to it. But we also did have a bit of drama, and this was for Gareth Newton only moments beforehand, and this was Newton making his way in towards Magnussen to Beckett. Oh, and he was, I think, tapped on the rear there by Ben-Luca Eckel, and we did see both drivers there taking liberal use of the track, and I think Luca Eckel just being caught out by Gareth Newton being a bit slower through the sinks. It's always going to happen when you do have a faster driver coming up behind a slower driver and they've not met each other, but that's what this pre-season is also about. They're just dialing out some of the errors of some drivers, and I'm sure that Eckel there will apologise afterwards, and the fact that it was just an innocent mistake. Indeed, it can happen at such high speeds into the high-speed complex. But with that, we come back to your live racing. And well, still more to come, of course, as we go deeper and deeper now into the second half of the race distance. And well, Ben-Luca Eckel back into pit lane. That will be for a fast repair on the car as the damage picked up, and I suspect, well, he'll also potentially be looking at some other work being done to the car there just to make it a little bit happier. The body language of the car then happy, no doubt. But as Rob Papaya makes his way up to speed there, the Indu Heroes driver coming out just ahead of their Benz Labance as they make the way through in towards turn number 3. And right now, your 223 driver there, and staying close behind his fellow silhouetted machine. And well, these two now have both served their initial pit stop. And well, it is Labance who's lost out a bit more compared to Papaya, but difference in strategies here as well. Vince Labance changed all 4 tyres in the pits and took fuel. Papaya, by comparison, opting only what is to take fuel in there. And we've had an update to say, actually, it is approximately 22 seconds for the changing of all 4 tyres rather than 27 to 28 seconds. And that's now how we're reading these pit times at the moment. But Papaya definitely staying on the same tyres. And suddenly Jesse Payne and Wilkins here looking for a move. well, he has still got to take his pit stop, given the fact that he took a pit stop early on in the race on lap 3 due to damage. But right now, the privateer will have to make another one. He won't be able to get that fuel tank to the end unscathed. And, well, lovely line there through the corner. Really having to try and pounce here whilst Levance has got no tyre temperature. Can he find a way through here? As they make the way into left into right from Angus into Beckett, the answer is no, not quite. Waits behind still, but Payne Wilkins here trying to find a way now to get a bit more of a draft out the corner. And he builds up the speed here. We look to your right hand side. You see your miles per hour gauge there as he gradually builds up, heading to 130. Then it'll be 140, then 150. Pull into the inside, getting ready to go onto the brakes here. Battle under braking between the drivers. All in he goes as Payne Wilkins. Is it going to be a move made? It is going to be, but understandably, it's only on track. It won't be strategically based on the knowledge that we have. And Levance right now will just tuck it behind and realise that it's going to be a situation whereby he's essentially now going to either make his way past Payne Wilkins or sit behind him and just simply suffer the time that he may lose. But Gavin Corby into the pit lane. So there is none of said Becker. And both drivers coming on down there in the club class. Becker being a lap down effectively to the Gavmax racing driver. And I believe this will promote Andrew Fellows now back up to third in the club class. No pit stops yet for Ellen Olsen or Brian Beardsworth in club. Your first and second place drivers, but we believe they'll come out where they currently are. Let's wait and see where it all fits back into the picture. Gareth Newton did change all 4 tyres in the pit lane and took some extra fuel in the car. Andrew Fellows yet to pit by comparison. So that's a bit of an explanation as to why Gareth Newton is so far down the order. But also we must give a shout out to the fact we've lost a few drivers along the way. Sarah Becker there lets Andrew Fellows go under blue flags. We did lose by non-start Kevin Smith. We also lost Clyde Vella quite early on. Also Tim Perry with hydration issues inside the car and heat exhaustion kicking in. So therefore decided to get out the car before he fainted with the car. And we also have lost Kai Hitchler from this race. And Ben Luca Eckel quite recently as well after his incident with Gareth Newton. Unfortunately, a bit of damage to the car and not able to carry on anymore. So a bit unfortunate for him, no doubt about it. As we do look to the car of Dwayne Hoffman, meanwhile, who's now got Ellen Olsen for close company. Now, Dwayne mentioning there in the YouTube chat the fact that forgetting to move the brake bias on the car, and well, as a result, the front tyres now started to feel a little bit of pain, I do believe, and to make his way around the corner. And of course, the brake bias of these cars can be adjusted on the fly. They can also, I do believe, adjust the traction control setting on the fly from the electronic display screens. And well, right now, the reason why you might want to move the brake bias away from the front and towards the rear is essentially because the way brake bias works is it essentially says how much loading is going to be done on the brakes of the front versus the rear of the car. The further forward your brake bias is, you are making the car dominated by front end braking. So that means as you go into a corner, you're very likely to understeer under braking, whereas if you're rear end dominated on brake bias or rear leaning, as you come off the brakes, the rear of the car will typically let go first, and you suddenly get a very twitchy rear end as you go from brake to throttle. But of course, a lot of drivers do like that because what it does, it gives you the extra rotation beyond the anti-roll bar setting. So Dwayne Hoffman rolls his way on through right now with Ellen Olsen still behind. Right now, definitely cognizant of the fact that it's 2 drivers of 2 different classes, and Hoffman here definitely trying to keep his head down and make sure not to make any errors. But as he makes way down towards what will be turn number 9, Olsen's still there. And well, some question marks being raised about Olsen's pace here. And one other thing to caveat as well, we should point out, is the fact that you are only seeing a very limited population of each of the classes here today. Remember, we do have a 60 driver grid, 18 drivers in both the club and the pro classes, and 24 in Inter. So therefore, we could see some favourites here today, only for it to all change at Fuji in 2 weeks' time. And it'll be very interesting to see how it all pans out. But in the meantime, Ellen Olsen glued to the back of Hoffman like a bad rash as they make the way down. And well, Olsen immediately comes storming close to the camera there. My goodness, the overspeed of that Porsche. And I think Hoffman there being passed. Olsen to the inside. And well, good driving from Hoffman, no doubt about it. Those front tyres definitely feeling warm. And Ellen Olsen now up into 6th place. But remember, of course, there is a pit stop, which is going to move back down the order. But we will see what is to come and how this all brings the field together. But in the meantime, as we get close to the end of the open hour of this race, and with that full fuel tank, we are definitely seeing these cars now go a much longer distance, but it creates such a huge strategic window. And what is really interesting to see, and again, this is the first time we've run an unrestricted fuel tank, so therefore we are learning as we go in regards to the organiser of this series, as much as our drivers are learning as they go. Well, what we are seeing here is we're going to effectively, I suspect we're going to have a pit window in these 90-minute races of around 30 to 40 minutes. That's huge. Oh, goodness me, it's Drayden Hoffman there, loses the rear of the car, just a little twitch on the rear end, coming out to a loop, and well, I think went to follow Olsen closely, but unfortunately, lack of front end downforce due to dirty air, just causing the car to skid sideways. Hoffman catching that car very well, and well, if he's not considered playing Major League Baseball in terms of being a fielding role there, if he can catch a car like that, he may be able to catch a ball, as he does bring it back together. Well, Flavien Tieffry a little bit further behind, and well, the all-red Supersport racing machine continues its way through the field. It has pitted as well, it should be pointed out, only for fuel. So right now, the Frenchman here definitely trying to chase down the top 5 today, if he can, and seeing whether he can get into the hunt for what will be second, if not the win in the interclass. Coming around right now, and on to national straight here. Well, his target first, he'll be Drayden Hoffman, who's only 6.5 seconds up the road, so he'll pass Hoffman on strategy, if not on the road. And then it's Brandon White, who as soon as I was about to give a thought on his strategy, well, he decides to call it out as the Datsun liveried Porsche makes his way into the pits, and the Evox racing car then decides to relinquish track position, but where will he be in relation to Flavien Tieffry? That is what we want the answer to. We look to the blimp camera, there he's making his way down pit road. Tieffry, meanwhile, just making his way through Stowbend right now, and as he does, in fact, not through Stowbend there. Let me correct myself. That's Maggots into Beckett. Well, make his way onwards. White still yet to come into his pit stall. And as Ellen Olsen's also coming to the pit lane, there we can see Olsen making her way on down pit road. And well, I think this is going to be a straightforward pit stop for the Finetti V Racing Pink team. Brandon White being serviced. 10 seconds into his service now. And we look back to Flavien Tieffry. Here he is coming in towards the Vale. Something tells me Brandon White is coming out ahead of Tieffry here. I think, unless he decides to change tyres at the pit stop. In fact, he's still there. He's now 24 seconds in. Brandon White is changed at least one tyre. Here comes Tieffry down the start-finish straight. This will be close between them, but Brandon White now 30 seconds in. It's still being serviced, and in the end, Brandon White's going to go behind Flavien Tieffry. So Brandon White, 34.5 second stop. That most likely is going to be at least 2 tyres being changed, and White losing out of the pit stop by comparison. That's Flavien Tieffry, who with only the fuel going in the car, will definitely making this work out. But as we do see, the three-wheeler race account confirming that for Max Wheeler, he has taken some description of a drive-through penalty, where those off-tracks definitely catching him out, and will make his way on through and up towards what will be turns 4 and 5 with the LBP Autosport driver coming through the left hand at the moment. Well, still chasing after John Ludbrook, but 1.2 seconds behind Ludbrook he is, and meanwhile Brandon White right behind there. But now, what can Brandon White do? We know he's changed 2 tyres in the pits of the box racing driver from the US of A, and can he now make haste? He's got a much fresher car, particularly through all those hard-leaning right-handers, of which, to give you an example, one of them is going to be none other than Stowbend. That's where he's expected to make up the time that he's lost from the pits, and well, going all the way up towards what will be Cox Bend. It's another corner as well. We should make ground once those tyres are warmed up. We'll have to see if that's the way it works out. As behind, there's John Becker, and how John Becker has got back into this race for a potential top 5 here in the interclass. Well, that's testament to the fact he has really persevered here. It went wrong earlier on, and now top 5 on the cards potentially if he keeps going. Well, speaking of drivers who keep going right now, of course, we do have those a bit further down. We have not lost in this race, including Serd Becker. Here he is right now, the Red Bull liveried Porsche 911 RSR driver, the privateer. Good aim to still keep on going, even though he is officially a lap down to leader. And we also do have Carlos Vazquez, who's still carrying on there. And with the privateer right now, seeing a flash of the headlights, and that is from what is none other than the machine of Bence Labance. And well, Labance, they're making it very clear what's going through, and Vazquez, I think if he gave him any more real estate, he would be making his way into the local village of Towcester. So therefore, Vazquez being as polite as humanly possible and letting what is the lead lap driver go on through. But great to see, even though they've both had difficult days, they haven't given up. And that's what it's all about here, and places can be made over the race distance. That's why we've got these longer races. They really will be a test of endurance, consistency, and of course a little bit of pace. But as we come back to a driver who's on the lead lap, running in third, well, here's Benny Vitter, and we're still yet to appear, and look who's caught up back to him. It's Nathan Allel, who right now, if he was any close at this point, he'd be going for a move. In fact, I think Allel is going to try and go for a move here as they make the way down the hanger straight. The man who's starting from the pit lane will now looking for third place on the road here. On the inside he goes versus the Reptile Racing Machine, and the black and white Corvette storms its way on through. And well, the Frenchman right now absolutely rocketing up the order. And well, we'll see Vitter make a move in return. And no, the answer is because he stays behind there going into the Vale, and we get close and close to only half an hour remaining. But a smooth move there from Allel. And right now, well, the only thing that's going to stop him from potentially chasing down Florian Gooder for the win will be time, given we have got 22 seconds between Gooder and Alol, and that is a long time between them. As we look to your class standings there you can see the deltas between each individual class driver, and well, that's where the points will be made and paid in reality when we do go racing at Fuji for points in 2 weeks' time. But Gareth Newton, meanwhile, on the back of Gavin Corby, and Newton changing all 4 tyres. Corby, meanwhile, staying on his starting set of tyres, and that's how Corby has got ahead, despite the spin he did have earlier on. Newton's also had mistakes of his own. Corby goes a bit wide there. Newton's going to look on the inside then as they make the way for Aintree, and Gavin Corby there just making a small mistake, and Newton will blast past as they make the way down towards Brooklands Lovefield. Well, Corby, I think, just finding out that front right tyre, not wanting to grip up as much anymore, and, well, falling back to 4th place in club. Next driver behind him will be Andrew Fellows, but the good news for him is Andrew Fellows is 33 seconds behind. So the Max Racing driver could be relatively safe here unless he makes a mistake, or alternatively picks up a drive-through penalty, or has to come into the pits for a splash and dash of fuel at the end, which may cost him the time. But as they go down towards what will be Cops Bend, well, the battles have calmed down for a bit now, and indeed, as we make our way towards the final third of this race, well, with a little bit of quiet, it does give us an opportunity to actually take some hydration of our own in the commentary booth. Please bear with me, ladies and gentlemen. Well, as the drivers make the way on through, and, well, Flavien Thierry there, seeing his own addition, not necessarily a commentator's curse in the YouTube chat, but what is chat's curse there, after complimenting Dwayne Hoffman all about the gyro, who we say hello to in the YouTube chat. I don't think we've actually formally said hello to him today in the broadcast. How rude of me. And indeed, well, Flavien Thierry complimenting Dwayne Hoffman, only for Hoffman to then make a mistake on the broadcast. And, well, I promise you one thing, Flavien. Once you've done it once, it never leaves you, because the number of times the post-round broadcast, and remember, I do not watch the replay before we do this broadcast. That's why I'm learning as we go, and indeed, every moment is a bit of a shock and a surprise to me. The number of times I'll compliment a driver or say something positive about them, and suddenly it all goes wrong. And I swear, it's almost if fate is listed sometimes. So you are not alone in that regard, good sir. I can promise you that. But still, enough of indulging myself as we indulge ourselves in Florian Gooder, doing a very good job here, leading the way for FTVM. Making his way around. And hopefully we get to see an FTVM livery on that car this season, because I definitely get the feeling the livery would absolutely shine bright on that Ferrari, no doubt about it. That's not to say the livery doesn't look awesome on the BMW. Speaking of which, we have a BMW coming down pit lane, Dwayne Hoffman, and I do believe he's mentioned the fact that he's going to be experimenting putting all 4 tyres on the car here. Given it's pre-season, you may as well use it as an experiment, but it is going to cost him a lot of time, and he's going to see how much time it's going to gain him over the remaining race distance versus what it would be if he kept to the same tyres as before, or just changed a couple of them. So Brian Beardsworth carries on, the club leader, who we do suspect will fall behind Ellen Olsen when it's all said and done, unless Olsen makes the mother of all mistakes. But the GPX SimSport driver right now not showing any signs of wanting to wilt to the pit lane. As he makes his way on through, and, well, Beardsworth rolling his way through turns 3 and 4, and the GPX SimSport Ardix driver right now making a small excursion wide there. I suspect right now that is just concentration levels and heat. And I can imagine these sim rigs right now, it is getting very hot. As meanwhile, well, here's a potential move from Brandon White and John Ludbrook trying to go around the outside. And I believe John Ludbrook has just been passed by Max Wheeler as well. So a bit of a 2 for 1 there. And will move being made just like that. And Brandon White picks up a place as he makes his way on towards what will be turns 6 and 7. But as he comes on through, Brandon White making that progress. John Becker's into the pit lane, it should be pointed out. So he's come in for his stop, and he's just left the pits. And Dwayne Hoffman leaving the pit lane as well after taking all 4 tyres. Has saved a lot of fuel, has Hoffman, in fact. To only take, towards the end, the rather short pit stop of fuel. Still more to come between our drives all the way to the end, as we do look to the change in places there of the 2 Zambo RP Motorsport cars, and that is Labance and Papai swapping places around. And I think Robert Papai there letting his fellow Hungarian driver go, knowing the fact that Labance right now on a fully fresh set of tyres compared to what many other drivers are running, he's got the pace. Remember, John Ludbrook has yet to take his strategic stop, came in on lap number 1 for repair work to the car and a splash and dash of fuel, so we are expecting that Ludbrook is not going to make the whole remaining 28 minutes in the final lap. But as they go down and in towards what will be turn number 15, Right now, the 214 driver here still carried on. He's going to be one of the drivers who goes the longest of everybody as we show you the overall standings. And well, here are the pit stops that have been made by drivers right now, numerically speaking. And there you can see your top two, plus also Lubert have yet to pit. Well, in fact, Lubert has pitted once, but he comes in now formally. Brian Beardsworth is also in. And well, I think we are coming to the end of the fuel tank as Florian Gooder and Benny Vitter. I wonder how many more laps they are going to go. Most likely one or two more, but they will need to come in. That fuel tank cannot keep going for eternity unless they have found a way on an unrestricted fuel tank, i.e. they can fill it up as much as humanly possible, is what I mean by unrestricted, unless they found a way to go the whole distance. But no, Gooder does come in as he does so there, going the best part of 32 laps, and well, going 63 minutes into this race. That means we have got a pit window effectively with some fuel saving of 30 to 35 minutes. I think this is going to make the strategies this season incredibly interesting, both in the 90-minute feature races, but also in the 2-hour races, because there will be a pit window essentially of around about what will be 10 minutes in which you can one stop the race, or do you alternatively try to two stop it and go for a much more aggressive setup of the strategy. And that will all depend, of course, on the nature of the circuit, the weather conditions, and that's why I think it's going to be a very intriguing season with the longer races. But as we do see Brian Beardsworth make his way through and up towards what will be turn number 6. We're right now back out in second place there in the club class as we expected. And well, Ellen Olsen taking that lead back. But Beardsworth, like Olsen, only taking fuel. So both drivers there deciding to run the same set of tyres they started with. And now just got to hold on to the very end. As Florian Gooder has already come out the pits after a 17-second stop just for fuel. And Benny Vitter still being serviced there. And well, comfortably ahead of what was Nathan Allo, albeit he won't be anymore because Oliver Kemp comes through. And so does Allo. So Vitter, in fact, will now be coming out behind them. And Flavien Tieffy will be too far back, surely. But Oliver Kemp now does have the growing threat of Nathan Allo right behind him. And I'll be thinking about a move here versus the Interleader in due course. We could see a bit of a battle between them. We have had a bit of an incident for Gary Corby, by the way. We will try to find out what's happened to him shortly. But right now, let's stay in the here and now and enjoy this battle between Allo and Kemp as they make their way down the Wellington Straight. Now, the battle of Corvette versus Porsche. As we said earlier on, the Corvette really is the long-term pace car. Now, it doesn't have the best straight line speed, nor is it the slides through the corners, but it doesn't have too many strengths in it by comparison with others when it comes to individual capabilities. The one thing about the Corvette that is interesting, it does seem to be quite a happy car in lower gears, much like the Porsche, although the Porsche is the king of low gear stability, as we found over the course of the last couple of seasons, and it continues to be that way, albeit that Porsche mid-engine rear-wheel drive. Blasphemy, some would say, because Porsche race cars to be rear-engine rear-wheel drive, but this could be blasphemy here if Allo finds a way through. Here he goes, looking for the space that's available, too wide, in towards Maggots into Beckett, and as he comes on through there, they go in, and Allo gets ahead. Does Kemp now try to go back around the outside? He looks for it, but Nathan Allo in the end pulls the trigger of the move. Kemp slides up the inside there, and well, Oliver Kemp, I did not expect that, and Kemp's back in control. And as they make the way down the hangar straight, well, the one thing the Porsche has going for it, does have quite a bit of straight line speed compared to the Corvette, unless they're running different wing values, of course, and different gear stacks. Remember, the gear stacks of these cars, fully customizable, all the way down to the individual gear-to-gear ratios of the final drive in GTE, and that means for drivers, it's all down to how you set up the car, for your abilities to drive it as much as it is your choice of car, and you've really got to be one with the machine. But Nathan Allo finding out that right now Oliver Kemp is not going to simply just roll over and let it go. This is a battle for second place and the battle between two class leaders in a way. Yeah, the fact that Nathan Allo has definitely got the pace to be leading, but Florian Gooder is currently the class leader in Pro. But right now, can the second place Pro man pick his way past the lead and into drive? Well, here he goes again. Get a better run coming through Abbey into farm, but too far back there by the time they get to village, and we're having to wait just a little bit longer. But as they come down, meanwhile, Brandon White being caught by Max Wheeler. We are keeping an eye out for that. And, well, better run coming out of the loop there from Allo. Getting closer again, little by little, poking and prodding, looking. And, well, what's it going to be this time? As we do see that Kemp goes to the middle of the road. Allo pulls to the racing line and decides to flick back to the inside at the last moment. Trying to throw a bit of a dummy here is Nathan Allo. And, of course, Silverstone, the home of perhaps the most infamous dummy in motorsport, made by Nigel Mansell on Keke Rosberg. And that was back all the way in the 90s. The one, of course, that saw Mansell Mania reach absolute fever pitch as it was known in the United Kingdom. And, well, do look it up. It is a term in relation to motorsport, Mansell Mania. If you didn't know, all in relation to the Red 5 man. Not just a Formula 1 driver, but also a British touring car driver and racing in other series around the world. right now. Nathan Allel still looking for a move here. And moustache not for him. Well, right now he may have to consider going for a dummy versus Kemp, because Kemp is definitely right now not letting his dummy be throw out the pram here as he holds his ground. And Nathan Allel will really be composed, but goes for a very early break in there in towards Beckett. Lovely line, but he understeers a little bit wide as Allel, and he has to bring it back on the road there. He has to be very careful. And Allel right now doesn't want to pick up any instant points if he can help himself. We don't know if he's close to a drive-through, but that's a driver there who doesn't want to sacrifice any off tracks if he can help it, and also making sure not going to the grass, because that will cause the cars to become very loose. But as they make the way now through the corners, a big twitch there from Allel. He's working so hard at the steering wheel of this Corvette. You can see Oliver Kemp by comparison looking just a little bit happier in the Porsche 911 RSI. It's got a rear end that's really hooked up. We're in Porsche territory right now. These low speed corners, that's where the Porsche should pull away, but not like that. And coming through Club Corner there, Oliver Kemp too tight on the line. Here comes Allel, and what's he going to do? He's going to look to the outside. He is. He's trying to get Kemp to go defensive, but Kemp calls him out. Allel has to back off there. Now going up towards Village this time, and does Allel fry it all into the inside? No, he doesn't. Still waiting as they make the way through. It's good mistake. Kemp goes deep, but he's given on the inside in towards the loop, and Allel's going to look around the outside here. Kemp's going to fight it every step of the way. Allel has to go out onto the dirt, and what is the debris on the outside of the corner, and so he's got to wait again. Kemp absolutely digging in here, even more so right now. The trenches have been dug, but as he makes his way down towards Brooklands right now, going really defensive there, making sure Allel doesn't pick up any toes. So Allel cuts it to the inside. On the brakes they go, too wide, and through the corner, Nathan Allel just squeezes his way ahead there, literally by a hair's width, and in the end, you couldn't make up the margins here. They are incredible between these drivers, as we now ride on board with the Concord Motorsports 32, and now that Allel is ahead, will he just pull away, or will Kemp be able to come back? But as they go all the way down the National Straight here, you can see Allel open up a bit of a 3/10 of a second gap initially, but now this is the territory where the Porsche will be put to the test. Can he carry the speed for the medium speed sequence of corners of Maggots into Beckett's? Can he get the better run onto that back straight? Well, we know that Kemp's car is just as quick, if not quicker, outside the draft. Well, made his way through Maggots into Beckett's then, getting ready for the right-hander, setting up this run, but takes a very tight line there. That's not the line he wanted, I think he's understeered towards the back of Allel's car, and I think both of them on the tyres they started this race on, they're both feeling the pressure now as they come charging up in towards Stowe. But look at Kemp's overspeed here, and well, this is what we're talking about. He looks up the inside, he's going to make it, go for a dicey move, just gets the nose in, takes a lot of curb, and as he does so, it doesn't quite work out. Allel in there knows exactly down to the millimetre how much weight to give him, but Kemp lunges up the inside, in towards Val they go, and well, now it's going to be too wide all the way through as Allel puts the car in the apex there, parks it up, and Kemp looking to the inside of the club. That's a very tight line, and that's a very risky line, and there's contact between the two of them as they both go sideways, and both drivers catch their cars. They get pointed back in the straight and narrow, but in the end, Oliver Kemp there going for the move on the inside, and well, I think in retrospect he's going to look at that afterwards and think, would it have been worth it if it was a points-paying race? And the answer may have been no there. And well, it's not to say that Kemp's at fault for the contact, but definitely a tight line there at Club Corner, and with it, of course, you've got a very restricted line, but what a battle between the two of them. And in the end, Nathan Allel holds on for now, but there's going to be more of it. I'm certain of that, ladies and gentlemen, now that Kemp's got the car reset and back. Meanwhile, Max Wheeler and found his way back up the order to a degree. He's got Benny Vitter right behind him. Vitter, having changed tyres in the pit lane, I do believe changing all 4 tyres. So Max Wheeler right now is going to the pressure here on much older tyres of having to hold on, as we do see there Bobby Paceman trying to unlap himself from the car of Brandon White. But then finds the blue flags waving at him, and in fact he has to give the lap up there to Max Wheeler, and Benny Vitter, as Bence Labant is also staying with them. But running the well through, and these drivers right now absolutely throwing everything at it, and it's really coming live at the end of the race. And it's so interesting to see this interdiction of strategies, those on fresh tyres versus those who haven't changed them, as here comes Vitter looking for the move, and Max Wheeler's going to have no response down to let that go. And I think right now the Audi powered Corvette just not having the grip levels left anymore. But now here's the big test for Bence Labant. Can he find a way through, given the fact he's got very fresh tyres here compared to what will be Wheeler, and they're batting over full place in the interclass. If he can make this happen, he'll be happy. If he can't make it happen, however, understandably, he'll be a bit sad about it, but we'll see what he can do here as he makes way through the corner. Get very close there. My good lord. Oh, goodness me, that's a big oversteer moment there from Wheeler, and you may not have noticed it, but the rear of the car let go there going through cops, and how Max Wheeler kept that together. Flashes headlights immediately to try and get into the head of Labant and trying to get him to outbrake himself through Maggots into Beckett, but something tells me that Labant's may be an okay. Meanwhile, I look out my content booth window, we've got Oliver Kemp coming down pit road. I think that's a drive-through penalty. That'll be for instant points to Kemp. He has had a couple of RG barraging moments earlier on today with Flavien Thierry, and well, that may have knocked him over the 16 instant point limit. So suddenly it has gone downhill for Oliver Kemp, and there's the proof in the pudding as he makes round down pit road. That is a drive-through penalty that is being served for instant points. But Flavien Thierry right now still a little bit way back here. He will take a bit of happiness in the fact he's catching up to Kemp. The only problem will be, what does he now do to try and beat the man who he ended up going to elbows out with several times at the start of the race? We're about to find out, because Kemp leaves the pit lane, and as he does so, we'll keep an eye on the right-hand side of the rear of your picture. There's the Sood Sport machine of Flavien Thierry right now. 17.5 minutes to go. The interleague battle is back on once again. And it's going to be interesting to see which way it all unfolds between these two as they roll the way off the corners. But as they get ready to fight, in the pit lane we do have Jesse Payne Wilkins coming on in. I do believe the car's been parked up for some time now, but there's an issue with Payne Wilkins' car, and that might be a sign of the car going for retirement. But as they do make the way on, well, here and there about Dwayne Hoffman deciding to change all 4 tyres and saying it's taken him the best part of 5 laps to get the car really going. It's costed the best part of 13 seconds based on the YouTube chat there. And, well, the American driver perhaps realising now in these 90-minute races, if he can afford to, not changing tyres may be the strategy, or just changing 1 or 2 at most, as he goes very deep there into the Vale. But we come back to the battle for the win in the interclass then. And right now, Kemp versus Thierry, they resume where they left off after the opening 30 minutes of the race. And Thierry at the moment, well, he pitted much earlier on by comparison. But right now, where's he going to go for the move here? He knows that Kemp is not going to make this easy. Kemp has got 10 instant points or so left before it goes to a disqualification for the race. Not saying that's going to happen, but just to put you in the frame of what mindset he will be in right now. Thierry, I believe, has yet to take a drive-through penalty, but he could be close to it. And therefore, both drivers have got to be a bit cautious here. But as they make the way down the back stretch and up towards Stowe Bend, well, Thierry got very close there, and perhaps just use that information now, storing it for later, thinks himself, okay, I'm quicker in the first half of the lap. Now I need to see if I can find a way to be quicker in the second half of the lap to make this happen and give myself options all the way around the track. And that's the thing. When you've got time available and you've got a car that's happy under you, you need to take your time moves like this when there's only one place between you and the win. You want to get this move done, and then you want to run away. You do not want this to become a back and forth scrap, because if it does, well, then you have this man, Brandon White, who could potentially catch up to it all. And he will be bringing Bence Labance with him, Max Wheeler as well, and Robert Papai. They are all getting closer, and that is the intrigue we are seeing here right now. We have got 5 drivers in the interclass, and we'll show you on the class standings there, all within effectively 10 seconds of each other. They are converging on the strategy. You've got drivers who have not changed tyres and drivers who have changed tyres. It is all coming together as they make the way onwards. But as they make the way around, all these drivers right now definitely keeping their heads down and putting on an impressive display. And if you are wondering, by the way, we have a question there from Flavien Thierry on the YouTube chat there, and that is with regards to why have you got a green dot on the side of the car there of Oliver Kemp in particular. You'll notice that he's got the 3 green dots, and that is from the World Endurance Championship, and that was for spectators and also the camera crews to pick up. Essentially, those dots tell you where the car is in relation to overall position. So a single dot means it's the leader of the race, 2 means it's second place, and 3 means it's in third. And that was since upgraded, and now we do have the dots on the side of the car, and they do have different colorations to represent the different classes in the FIA World Endurance Championship, if I remember correctly. I can't remember the exact colour scheme, but you also do have the position number entrenched in an LCD crystal display, if I remember correctly, on what is the front windshield of the car as well. Not here in iRacing, it was introduced as of 2024, I want to say, and he taken from the GTE World Challenge Europe Championship. That's the first series that did that, mounting the LED or LCD displays in the windscreen, so that way the camera crews and spectators can see the position of the car overall. But it's always typically overall position, or if not, it can be class position in a World Endurance Championship. So that's filling you in there on why you've got the dots on the side of the car, because if you do look to Flavien Thierry, no, he's not coming in surely for a drive-through penalty. He is, and well, as all the lights go on the side of his car, they'll be out for a long time as he makes way to the pit lane, because that is going to be his race sent backwards. And unfortunately, I suspect a small off-track somewhere has just kicked him over the limit. But suddenly what it means now is that for Brandon White, can he pick up the mantle here? He is lapping 2 seconds quicker versus Oliver Kemp. And well, right now that's going to put him on a course here to be battling with Kemp in the final 10 to 6 minutes of this race. Although Benny Vitter will have something to say about this if he can get involved as well. And well, Flavien Thierry's now got a lot of work to do, but never say never, to be fair. He's just left the pit lane. He's come out in 9th place overall, 6th in class, and well, he is going to be definitely pushing on as much as he can on a very worn set of tyres. Bence Labance as well, staying getting close as they make their way onwards. Max Wheeler falling a bit further behind on his much older tyres. And Robert Papaya as well, still trying to get close. As meanwhile, we do look there to John Ludbrook, who's just been passed by Gareth Newton. And that is going to be for overall position, but not class position. I believe Ludbrook's had a bit of a mistake going from Maggots into Beckett's there. And definitely feeling the pinch on the tyres. But that's Brandon White we go. And as the Inbox Racing driver makes his way onto National Straight, well, definitely feeling as though as we close there with Witte, but what's White going to do at this point? Does he defend, or does he simply let it go? Now, we know that White has changed 2 tyres. He's not changed all 4, so I suspect the left-hand turns are really painful. The right-handers, less so. Although Witte, by comparison, a whole new set of tyres on the car, and Levant's the same. And, well, that's where the intrigue really is now, because I think Brandon White gradually hit a bit of a wall in terms of the pace, and everybody else still in a bit of a position whereby it's getting so very much marginal here as to whether they're going to be able to chase down Oliver Kemp or not. And Kemp here may be lucky. If Benny Witte does really fight with Brandon White, he may be given a bit more time and enough space to feel safe, because that is the big battle that we're waiting to see the outcome for as they come through. And Max Wheeler there in the Three-Wheeler Racing YouTube account confirmed his tyres were so done. End of the race with very little left. Flashing at Benz to apologise for his drifting. And, well, it does seem as though there Max Wheeler having some difficulty. And, well, there's apologies being passed on there for LBP Autosports driver. But we'll have to wait and see whether he can get to the end of the race without issue, with Robert Papaya only 6 seconds behind and very slowly closing, given the fact they both are running on their original starting tyres. But as for the club class, we haven't really talked about Ellen Olsen for some time. Let's not forget about our club drivers as well, because we've been focusing a lot on the pro and the inter drivers in the last 20 to 30 minutes. Well, Ellen Olsen is leading currently, 10th overall, and the lap times are Olsen coming in smooth, having not changed any tyres. And right now, Olsen, I think, really picking the right strategy here today. Has made some mistakes on the way, but to be fair, the FIA TV Racing peak driver made sure those mistakes have not proved too costly. Jesus Saavedra has followed on in 11th place there, the FIA TV Racing Rose car. And, well, in turn, it's a further 9 seconds back before you do get to your second place driver in the club class of Brian Beardsworth, who right now, on the original set of tyres he started on, looking consistent. Some mistakes come in, but made no mistake, this is looking to be very good for a potential second place in the class here. And you've got Dwayne Hoffman 20 seconds back, having changed all 4 tyres and having finally got those tyres up to temperature. And now it's started to pump out laps. So we've got John Ludbrook into the pit lane, and I believe that is going to be for what will be his final trip of the day. And Gareth Newton is the third place man in club, who right now will leave Ludbrook behind. But as he heads on through, well, meanwhile, we make our way all the way now back up to Oliver Kemp. And, well, hold up a second. Kemp's made a bit of a mistake there, coming through what was Maggots into Beckett. And, well, as we do see Benny Witte getting closer, Brandon White won't want this to happen right now. This is going to cost him time. And, well, if you're Brandon White, what do you do here? Witte goes up the inside. The Reptile Racing driver makes the move. Oh, they get very close to touching there. And Benz Lemansfield watches from behind. He could get involved here. This is going to buy Kemp time. It's going to give him back the second he's lost on this lap, but it's great racing between them, no doubt about it, as they make the way through. And right now, Benz Levance watches this from behind. We ride aboard it, three-way fight. They touch slightly as they come out of club, but right now, Benz Levance will look to try and take a club to this. He gets close behind the Reptile Racing machine now, Witte, and, well, Brandon White going as defensive as humanly possible, but 10 minutes to go, another 5 laps, including the one we've just got on to, I suspect. And right now, all these drivers close, they both go deep, and for Benz Levance, he's going to take one. Does he take both of them there? Brandon White gets him rolled. Benny Witte goes defensive. No, he doesn't in the end. And Levance, in fact, made to lose out there versus Brandon White, who takes that inside line. White just recovers it. But those tyres of White's car right now. And again, where was that? That was a right-hander. Well, you wouldn't expect that. But the front left really badly locking up there. And Levance looking up the inside now. Left into right here for Brooklands into Luffield. Fresh tyres on that car by comparison. Gets ahead, coming through now in towards Luffield Bend. And the same RP Motorsport driver moves into second place in Inter. Lovely move from him, no doubt about it. And now getting onwards towards the national straight here. Can he leave Brandon White behind? And if so, can he then hunt down Benny Witte? And can the pair of them hunt down Oliver Kemp? 3 seconds up the road is Oliver Kemp, but he is struggling for pace right now. And, well, understandably, when he's lapping in the mid-59s or the low 59s, and these drivers behind him on the fresher tyres are lapping in the low 58s in clear air, well, it doesn't take a mathematician to realise that that's a second a lap they're taking, and with it, they will be on him if they can stop fighting each other. But White right now, I don't think he's done here. And I think Brandon for the Inbox Racing team, what he's doing on these tyres right now, and, well, I have seen many of you give comments saying the Datsun livery there is essentially sacrilege to the Porsche. But either way, with the American driver right now on such an old set of tyres, really putting together a phenomenal stint. But he goes very deep there into Stowe. And I think the tyres are letting go here for Brandon White. He's giving it everything. But I think right now he's got to let the rest. And it's tyres today that have just held him a little bit at bay. But here is Oliver Kemp, the man in third, trying to hold on for a little bit longer. And as they make the way on down in towards turn number one, and I do forget there that Dr. Dwayne Hoffman is a mathematician, and I do love that. Thank you, Dwayne, for confirming it is a second a lap. I absolutely love you for that. And well, Oliver Kemp, meanwhile, makes his way on through here in towards turn number 3. On to lap 42, 7.5 minutes to go. Benny Witter, 2 seconds behind right now. The gap is cascading downwards. And meanwhile, Ben Slavance right now looking just as quick. But the problem he's got is he's got a pro between him and the interleader. And well, all he's got to do right now is stay behind. He's got to let Benny Witter do the hard work, presuming that the 380 driver has the pace to be a nuisance to Kemp. Meanwhile, in the battle for the win, well, Florian Gooder versus Nathan Allel. Well, Nathan Allel having to come into the pit lane for what was that unfortunate penalty, and Florian Gooder being very safe right now, 19 seconds clear, even though Allel is lapping 8/10 a lap faster. And well, it could be said if he had been able to start on the front row of the grid, well, it would have been an opportunity for him to run away and really flex his muscle in that Corvette, but it wasn't to be today. But he's definitely set the tempo and taken the spotlight here at Silverstone ahead of our season opener at Fuji. But as all these drivers continue to survive just that little bit longer, we look back to Jesus Saavedra, and the FIA TV Racing Rose Spaniard still has Brian Beardsworth a bit further behind, but directly behind him is Karolis Vaskevicius, who we do see here right now, the British driver, still pushing his way around and was maintaining the pace here, running quite happily in 5th of the club class, and made his way past Sed Becker, who has had to come into pits again, and also the retiring car Gary Corby along his journey. But whilst we look further down to those who are perhaps continuing to push onwards despite the struggles, well, right now Oliver Kemp definitely struggling for lap time. Last lap of 59.13. What's it going to be at this time for the British driver? We know the talents he has available to him. We know how quick he can be, but right now the rubber he's got under him is not keeping him alive. And well, it's a 58.919, a best lap for him for some time. Benny Witter a 57.423. Ben Slavance a 57.443. Well, that is how quickly the gap's come down. And now it is 6/10 here. And here we go. Lap 43. Our leaders already halfway through the lap. So in fact, we've got this lap plus most likely we could have another 3 more. It will be marginal whether we get 3 or 2. But it's going to be interesting to see how many laps we get and how quickly Witter can potentially try and make this move happen versus Kemp, if he can make it happen. And that's not to say Oliver Kemp isn't going to fight this, because he'll want the third place overall just as much as he will want the class win. And coming through for Concord Motorsports here, we look back from the rear of the 32 driver now as they start to lock in for what is expected to be a very thrilling fight. Wipers on there for Benny Witter, and if that's not him trying to say hi with the wipers or get the debris off, I'm not sure what he's doing. But right now, he's going to be saying hello with a potential move here down the National Straight. Here they go. Witter getting a better run out of Woodcock Corner, but does not go for it in Scott's Bend. Decides it's better to wait. Instead, get the better run through the right-hander, get the run into Maggots into Beckett, and then you see using all the tarmac at the bit of the curve, just within track limits there. And well, Witter waited again. He doesn't want to go for it through the sweepers. He'd rather go for it coming onto the hanger straight, get a better run here coming out to Beckett and out to the chapel. Well, I'm not sure if he's a religious man, but he'll be praying he's got it right now. And he does so there. Here we go then, down the back straight. The gap gets closer. What was 2 tenths now becomes 1. Then it becomes half a tenth. And he's going to pull to the inside. Oliver Kemp keeps the car on the outside. He decides not to fight it hard, but instead to carry some momentum around the outside. Witter on the inside there. The pro drive does go through. So Oliver Kemp loses third place overall. But now Ben Slavance is the next man. And this will be for the interlead. And it will be gloves off here for what will be Oliver Kemp versus Ben Slavance, we suspect, or as far as his tyres will allow him. They all know who's in which class. And they can see it on their relative black boxes available with iRacing as they make the way around inside the cockpit there. And well, they will both notice that now they are battling for what will be the inter-win if they didn't know it already. And Ben Slavance has the tyre life advantage, but Oliver Kemp meanwhile has shown all day today just how wide he can make his own Porsche. And how is it going to go down? Well, we've got lap 44 plus another 2 to tell us the story, ladies and gentlemen. And here we go as they make the way through these corners. We do confirm with race control how many laps we've got. And in fact, we have got 46 laps. That has now been confirmed. So we are going the distance over what is 1.5 hours. And Oliver Kemp goes defensive immediately here coming out of Aintree. He knows that Lavance is always going to get the better run off the corners. And out towards Brooklands they go. Kemp defending hard, but Lavance in the end tries to go around the outside. Kemp lets the car roll a little bit deep. Le Mans tries to survive. They touch. They glide. They make contact. It's going to be too wide as they both escort each other wide. And Benson Le Mans does get through. Oliver Kemp in the end. Definitely finding his elbows were matched by none other than Benson Le Mans. So Le Mans is into the lead. Albeit a little bit controversial way of doing it. But I think both drivers were giving each other as good as they were given. And in the end, he's going to make that move count. And how did it all play out? Well, here's a quick replay to show you, ladies and gentlemen. So this was only moments to go as they roared the way down the Wellington Straight, and as they did, well, we got to see here Benson Le Mans looking around the outside, but Oliver Kemp on the brakes. He was never going to let this go. He was going to delay the apex as much as possible, and in the end, well, Le Mans would argue he'd made his way to the inside of the next corner for braking, and Kemp will feel as though that in the end it was pushed to pass, but I think both drivers had their side of the argument, and I think in the end it's going to be 6 to 1 and half a dozen the other, which means it's 50-50 between them. Both drivers wanting that win just as much as the next driver. We shall see. But as we head back to your live racing, at least on the road right now, it is Benson Le Mans who leads the way with elbows out between the two of them. And, well, they'll roar the way on through. I mean, definitely see that right now, Brandon White still staying close behind. And can he get involved as well, knowing that he has got a car that's 50% worn down on its tyres and 50% very happy with its tyres. Every time he makes his way for a right-hander, the car looks happy. Every time he goes for a left-hander by comparison, it looks a lot less happy by comparison to Boxer Racing. And, well, if he can't get involved, I think it's going to be a tough one here to see this all the way through to the end. As he rolls his way up through the corners. Meanwhile, we do look to man who's now gone on to the penultimate lap of today. Full Tilt Virtual Motorsports Florian Gooder and the Frenchman in the 399 Ferrari just looking in control. Whilst Nathan Allor is definitely closing up by the best part of a second a lap. It's way too late and too far away as these drivers covered around right now. And I can see a few of you there giving your thoughts on what was the contact between Le Mans and Kemp. And well, some of you saying in favour of Le Mans, some of you saying in Kemp. As long as you keep it civil, we don't mind that at all. That's what the chat's all for. Indeed, for all the community at SimRacing International. Even if you're tuning in for the first time, know you've got a home at SRI with us, whether you're just a watcher or a racer. But as a Gold Motorsport driver, as a defend now, Kemp definitely getting these elbows out for the second time here as Brandon White getting ready to attack. And that's not a Datsun, that is the Porsche getting ready to attack. But here they come, coming out of the loop. This is the penultimate lap for them. One more to go after this one. And right now, your number 32 driver, we think yourself, we've got to do this all over again. And goodness me, what a difference we're seeing on the strategies here today. And, well, as they make their way through right now, going from Brooklands into Luffield. This is where Kemp is definitely very weak on the rotation on all sides of the car. And Brandon White through this right-hander. Look at the speed, the control he's got there. Much tighter line. And that's where he's able to abuse the left-hand side tyres more than the right. And as they come down through Woodcock Bend right now, getting ready for Cops Corner. This will be another corner where White should be the quicker of the two of them. And the Box Racing driver getting close. Decides not to go for it there. Perhaps tries to feint it out. Not going to work as he makes his way in towards Magnus into Beckett. And our leader, meanwhile, goes on to the final lap. Does Florian Gooder as I look out my content booth window. But we stay transfixed here to the battle for second place in the interclass as they come through. And White gets closer and closer. Looks at the cutback here. Looks to get a better run. And look at the mistake there from Kemp. Kemp goes very wide. And White immediately cuts to the racing line here. Interesting fault from White. So what he's decided to do now is say to Kemp, okay, if you want it that badly, you're going to have to defend to the inside. But he can't get fully ahead. Looks to switch it to the inside here. Tries to go for the dummy. Does he sell it enough? It's going to be a bit of a small touch win as the sparks fly. But as Brandon White comes out the corner here, what's it going to be? Down the hill in towards the rail. It's not over yet. 2-1 to go onto the brakes. And on the inside there, it's Oliver Kemp defending hard. Brandon White's going for one more run at this. There'll be one final lap between the two of them. Well, as they come on around, right now the Box Racing driver definitely eager to try and make this happen as quickly as he can. Meanwhile, we show you where Florian Gooder is out of the circuit, making his way onto National Straight already, almost half his way around the lap. In his final 3.66 miles of his day. But then we do come back to your battle for second of what is 5th overall, but second in Inter. Oliver Kemp going defensive again. Brandon White this time looking around the outside to inside. Goes the switchback and Kemp goes very deep. Now Kemp, all he can do at this point is lunge the car to the hairpin. They touch. And as they make that out of the corner, Kemp gets back ahead. And Kemp right now, he's always going to dig in here and get his elbows out as much as possible. Brandon White's being made to work for every yard of this as they come down the Wellington Straight. But right now as they bomb their way down it, much like the Bombers their name named after. Who exactly is going to be dive bombing this time? And it is going to be Kemp on the inside. But White looking all the way round. That's not going to work. And Oliver Kemp will hold that as they come in towards the next corner. Come through Luffield. But as they do, we need to look away, ladies and gentlemen, for a brief moment. Because for this man, as he makes his way through Stowe Bend, where it's only a couple more corners to go for Florian Gooder. And right now, looking very much in control. It's been a phenomenal race. But keep in mind, Tim Perry was able to get the upper hand early on and break away until he came in due to a hydration issue inside the car for the driver, not the car itself. And so for Florian Gooder, he's picked up the pieces and he will take the win here in the pre-season events at Silverstone, Pro and overall. And it will be by 17 seconds ahead of Nathan Allel, who makes his way all the way for a pit lane start after meant to be starting second place of the grid. And he will return to the place he was meant to start, Pro and overall. It's second for the Frenchman. But then who will be finishing third? Well, it will be Benny Vitter. And Vitter making his way on down. But we do come back to Kemp versus White for a brief moment. We just catch them as they make the way in towards Stowe this time. Oliver Kemp still defending, but elbows up between the two of them again. Meanwhile, we do come back to Benny Vitter there as he makes his way to line. He will take third overall, and in Pro, well done to Benny for that. But then who will be your inter-winner? It's Bence Lamance, and well, great drive there for the Zamba RP Buzz will try to take fourth. Oliver Kemp, meanwhile, will hold on to second place in the interclass as it's Brandon White who spins his way in reverse across the line there. And I think the tyres have given up for the inbox racing driver, but to be fair, if you're going to finish like that, finish in style. Third in the interclass. Well done to the pair of them. Max Wheeler in the end will survive with regards to the tyres for LBP Autosport to take fourth in Inter. Seventh overall ahead of Robert Papai, who will come home eighth. And it'll be Flavio Tiefri, who closed up quite rapidly in the late stage to take ninth place. Ellen Olsen will come through. And well, it's going to be an important win for us. Shall we please for Validity V Racing Pink, taking the club win 10th overall. 6 seconds behind, it will be teammate for the sister car Validity V Racing Rose of Jesus Saavedra. The Spaniard coming through there in 11th place and 7th in Inter. Brian Beardsworth was yet to come through, and he will be your last lead lap finisher with Dwayne Hoffman, Gareth Newton, Bobby Paceman, and Andrew Fellows have finished the race, and also Carolus Vazkevicius has come through already, and the GPX Sport Drive, your 188, makes his way for the final quarter to be runner-up in club with an absolutely solid drive today. Shout out to none other than Carolus Vazkevicius and also to Sir Becker. You see Becker who's yet to finish because the privateer, despite being the best part of 2 laps down, compared to the majority of the field, well, he hasn't given up any point, and that's what it's all about. And well, Overdrive's putting on such a superb show. But as he makes his way on through, well, of course, we'll see him get to his checkered flag. As meanwhile, Florian Gooder there, just taking it nice and easy as he makes his way on down the back straight. And we'll just savour the fact that no points on the line today, but a very, very strong drive for him, and definitely one to watch out for when we do go racing for points at Fuji. But we've still got one man to get to the finish, and here is Seb Becker. Let's see him home, ladies and gentlemen, like we've seen all the others home as best we can. Indeed, even though he's not had a happy day in the office, he's still got to the finish, and that is racer spirit defined, and that's what we love to see here at SRI as he takes his checker flag, 6th in club and 18th overall. But just before we look at the race results, of course, we are going to take a look back at that battle that we did see, if we can, between Brandon White and Oliver Kemp, and all on the final lap. Here we go, ladies and gents, for the incredible battle, and this was coming down the run of what was none other than the Hangar Straight. 2 wide they went, a small touch between the two of them, and well, that was on lap 45, of course. That was the penultimate lap, and well, Oliver Kemp in the end holding the inside. Brandon White trying to go all the way around, but not able to make it work. And then a lap later, they did it again, the battle, and this was for the final time, and it all began in the run coming through was Abbey into farm, and it was none other than Kemp who went deep. Brandon White tried to go around the outside, and in the end, Oliver Kemp, despite having to be a bit forceful, did take it back there, and that's how their battle would end, with Oliver Kemp just holding on for the 2nd place spot. But with that, as they bolted away almost, there's no change further forward. Well, we do take a look back to live time, and with it, let's take a look at those race results, subject to any stewards' inquiries. Indeed, as we do come back, an incredible race, no doubt about it. And as we do look to the scenic view, let's take a look at those results. And as we can see, after an absolutely fascinating 90 minutes of racing for the pre-season event at the Silverstone circuit for Season 3 of the GTE Championship, brought to you by SimRacing International on iRacing, Florian Gooder taking the overall and pro win for Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport, 17 seconds ahead of the prior to Nathan Allo, who did an incredible job to come up through the field, despite the drive-through penalty as well, and bringing on home a superb second place there. Definitely will be a major threat in the pro class, as will Gooder, although for different reasons. Gooder on strategy, consistency, Allo on outright pace. Benny Vitter, a strong third place finish for the Reptile Racing driver, albeit not able to touch the top two, but definitely fights his way past the majority of the interfield, including interclass winner Bence Labance, the Zamba RP Motorsport driver, 6 seconds ahead of a very defensive and ferocious Oliver Kemp, who held on for the second place spot in Inter and 5th overall. The Concord Motorsports driver fended off Brandon White by only 7/10 of a second in the end. The Airbox Racing driver will be heartbroken not to have taken second, but at the same time as well, given the state of his tyres towards the end, will be very happy with the third, and Max Wheeler surviving to 7th for LBP Autosport ahead of Endo Heroes Robert Papai. Flavien Thierry, 9th there for Sud Sport Racing. Things didn't quite work out for him in the early stages, but fought his way back up the order, and Ellen Olsen taking 10th overall, the club win for the Validity V Racing Pink driver, 6 seconds ahead of Jesus Saavedra, 11th there in the overall considerations for Validity V Racing Rose. Brian Beardsworth, your run-up in the club class there for GPX SimSport in 12th after some early mistakes. Definitely made sure not to make any more compared to some of his rivals, and split it in from the third place man on the club podium. Was the first to your lapdown finishes, Dwayne Hoffman, whose experiment with all 4 tyres being changed in the pits definitely put him further down the order, but he's gained valuable information for FTVM, or Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport. Gareth Newton took 14th there for GPX SimSport. Third in the club class, ahead of Bobby Paceman, who did well to recover his way into 15th for Reptile Racing. And then we did see Andrew Fellows, Karelis Vazkevicius, and then none other than said, Becker be your last finishers of the race, with Becker being 3 laps down. John Ludbrook, unfortunately, retiring with 7 to go. And we also did see premature retirements for John Becker, as we did also there for Jesse Payne-Wilkins, Gavin Corby, Ben Luca Eckel, Guy Hitchler, Tim Perry, Clyde Vella, and a non-start for Kevin Smith. But in the individual class finishing positions, starting with the top tier, that is the pros, we had 6 of them here today, and Florian Gooder was able to make it to the win in the end with what was technical issues for Nathan Allo on the grid, having to start from the pit lane, and Tim Perry retiring from the lead of the race due to a hydration issue inside the car. And the Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport driver drove a very consistent race and had nothing go wrong compared to his rivals. Allo, meanwhile, taking that second place spot, 1-2 for the French drivers, 17 seconds behind, and then Reptile Racing third and fourth with Benny Vitter ahead of his teammate Bobby Paceman. Guy Hitchler, a retiree, as was Tim Perry. And then as we do come to the interclass, we do see here none other than Bence Labance, the December RP Motorsport driver, a huge drive through, battling hard in the Moustache Machine, and in the end, definitely delivering a great result there on what's a fresh set of tyres, and we're showing in the interclass at least, there's a lot of strategic options available, and then he was able to outsmart Oliver Kemp on the strategy, even when Kemp was perhaps the more ferocious driver with the battle in. The Concord Motorsports driver made sure to stop the rot at only second place, with Brandon White unable to find his way through, 6 tenths behind for Itbox Racing despite everything he threw at it, and Max Wheeler just missed out on the podium there by a further 12 seconds at LBV Autosport, but was the second ahead of Robert Papai at the finish, with the Endo Heroes driver slowly closing on him, but both drivers there on the tyres they started the race on, and both struggling to find the pace. Flavien Thierry for Sud Sport Racing made some quick ground late on, despite having much older tyres, and we saw Dwayne Hoffman finish a lap down there for Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport with the gamble on strategy not paying off, but giving him plenty of information. And then we did see John Ludbrook 7 laps down, but will be classified as a finisher given the distance he was from the overall race winner, whereas it's non-finishes meanwhile for John Becker, Jesse Payne-Wilkins, Ben Luca Eckel, Clyde Vella, and a non-start for Kevin Smith of Rhino Esports. Then to the club class we go. And as we can see, Ellen Olsen, your club winner for Validity V Racing Pink, although had to take the lead of the GPX SimSport team several times over the course of the race distance through mistakes and also them being quicker at certain points. But once Olsen got the bit between her teeth, she definitely made sure to bite off those positions one by one, and will in the end, the cat-powered machine bringing on home an absolutely brilliant win. GPX SimSport ran off the podium there for Brian Beardsworth and Gareth Newton, who was a lap down behind, and Andrew Fellows completed the trio of GPX drivers just ahead of Karelis Vazkevicius, and well, the privateer in the end not having a happy day, but to be fair, finding his way to 5th place and making sure to finish well inside that top 5. 5. It was 3 laps down to Seb Becker, who did see the finish line, and then we did see a retirement for Gavin Corby for Gav Max Racing, who definitely proved to be one to watch, and if he can iron out those mistakes he was making, he's definitely got pace to be inside the top 5 this season, we suspect. But with that, ladies and gents, that completes your rundown of the results, and that completes our time here at Silverstone for this pre-season event. And well, what a race we've had. We've only had 27 drivers here today, 26 able to go racing, but it's given us a really good feel of what it's going to be like when we do go green flag racing this season, and in particular how the changes in the rules and regulations, particularly with fuel loads, the longer races, and also the fact the way we've got our classes lined up, we have got an epic season ahead for season 3, and we cannot wait for Fuji. But with that, it's now time for us to wrap up. And thank you very much for watching. And if you have enjoyed the broadcast, if you're sat there right now wanting to know how you can get on the grid here at SimRacing International for all of our series, including, of course, get yourself on the reserve list for the GTE Championship, because our series are completely filled up at the moment. We're always open to reserves. Join the official Discord. It's at the bottom of the screen, and you won't find a more friendly and welcome community to go sim racing with other than SimRacing International. And whilst we are based in the United Kingdom, we are open to anybody, regardless of where you hail from. You've seen drivers from all over the European continent here today, also drivers from the United States of America. If you want to go racing and have a fun time doing so, then SimRacing International is the place to go to, whether you're a rookie all the way through to an esports professional. And in terms of the series we have available, well, of course, you've been tuned into the Friday GTE Championship that runs every 2 weeks, season 3. But if you're more of a GT3 person, you prefer your more modern staple of GT racing, we have our Thursday evening GT3 Championship that runs now in its 13th season, and that runs every week on Thursdays. Or if you're more of a weekend racer, we do have our UK Sim Racing Sunday Showdown in its 19th instalment, running every Sunday evening. We also do have getting underway with its pre-season event tomorrow evening. That'll be live from circuit side. What'll be the Motorsport UK Esports Approved Championship, and that'll be the Sim Racing International Transatlantic Trophy, featuring an array of GT3 and GT4 McLaren machinery, and what is expected to be a hotly contested race throughout the entirety of the field. 60 drivers, 30 teams, all going for some absolutely huge prizes in our biggest ever championship that we have hosted so far in the history of SimRacing International. But if you're looking to dial it all down and just simply enjoy some racing free of charge, we do have 3 races every week in our practice league that run on different days. Indeed, we make sure to put on plenty of variety here at SimRacing International, so that way where you're looking for something casual all the way through to competitive, we're definitely going to meet your requirements. But as we take a look to what is our series and league sponsors, of course, we'd like to give a big shout out to Carme, Modern Technology, the GP2 Group. Also, we'd like to say a big shout out and thank you to Motorsport UK Esports' division for recognise us as a recommended community. We're very grateful for that recognition here at SimRacing International, and long may it continue throughout 2026 and beyond. And so, ladies and gentlemen, while pre-season event recapped and complete, we now look ahead to next time. And well, on what will be round number 1, the racing will take place at Fuji Speedway. Sadly, it won't be brought to you live from circuit side on what will be Friday. Excuse me, none other than, as I double check my dates here to make sure we don't get this wrong, I don't want to make a complete mothball this. Friday, the 7th of August is when the racing will occur, but we'll be bringing it to you live, like today's format of a broadcast, on Tuesday, the 11th of August 2026. It's purely because of availability, but most of the rounds this season will be brought live from the circuit side. Unfortunately, we're just not going to get the season opener live, and I do believe as well it's either round 4 or 5 that won't be live from the circuit side. But we promise you one thing, if you enjoyed this post-round broadcast as if it were live format, you're going to love it when we go to Fuji, as we'll raise the curtain for season 3 formally and see the first points put on the board. But what exactly have we seen here today in the United Kingdom? Well, we've seen it does seem to be all about consistency up and down throughout your classes of pro, inter and club. Albeit in club class, Ellen Olsen looking very quick when she was able to get things settled down and leave the GPX SimSport crew behind. In the inter class, we saw that strategy played a vital part, with Ben Slabant to the end finding the right tyres to get the job done, although Oliver Kemp was definitely getting his elbows out every step of the way. And as for the pros, well, Florian Gooder taking a very smooth drive to victory, but with technical issues for Nathan Allel and also hydration issues for Tim Perry, it's anybody's guess who could be a pro winner after round number 1. So come join us as we were live on Tuesday 11th of August to see how it all goes down the foothills of Mount Fuji in Japan. But till then, ladies and gentlemen, we've been SimRacing International. I've been your host and commentator, Paul Walsh, and until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, as always, remember to stay on track. Good night.